Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Awakens Spider-Man. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Issei had always been seen as weak and overlooked by the factions due to his brother. His parents were aware of the supernatural world, but when they discovered the truth, they sought Issei's forgiveness. The factions, upon learning the reality, also attempted to find Issei to seek his pardon. The events of the Infinity War and Endgame had already transpired. The girls, upon learning the truth, were devastated and saddened by the harm they had caused Issei. He had lost trust in the supernatural leaders. Issei possessed the powers of Spider-Man, but he would soon gain another ability, electricity, similar to Miles Morales. Prologue: The life of Hyudou Issei and the beginning of a new life. Issei introduced himself as Issei Parker, formerly known as Hyudou. He explained his presence in New York, wearing a red and blue suit adorned with a spider emblem on his chest and back. He was often labeled as the black sheep of the family for lacking magic and any special powers compared to his brother, Brad Hyudou, known as Sekeryuitei or the hero of the factions. Issei viewed this as a facade, especially since Brad was engaged to the Gremory heiress, accompanied by a group that included Akino Himejima, Kaneko Tuju, Kiba, Hyudouo, Zenovia, Quarta, Rosweiss, Kuroka, Hellcat, Tiamat, Cadre, Penemu, the Archangel Gabriel, and the Mao Seraphal Leviathan. All these girls had fallen for his brother's strength and intelligence, which Issei knew to be misleading. Despite his own feelings, he had been rejected with cold words, leaving him heartbroken. However, he managed to cope with the pain. Issei recounted how he gained his powers during a school field trip where they discussed experiments involving spiders. Fascinated by the subject, he learned that one spider was missing. Unbeknownst to anyone, this spider had descended from the ceiling and bitten him. After the trip, he returned to the Parker family, who had supported him after his previous family had cast him aside. When they asked if he was alright, he assured them he was, even though he felt pale. He quickly retreated to his room and fell asleep, unaware that it would be the last time he would be with them. After an hour and 34 minutes of sleep, he awoke to find that his physique had changed. He had grown taller and more muscular. However, upon descending, he was met with a heartbreaking sight. The bodies of Ben Parker and May Parker lay on the ground, burned. Overcome with grief, he recalled their kindness and Ben's words, "With great power comes great responsibility." He noticed a note that read, "We killed what you loved most, now you will be alone. Hope you enjoy your gift. Sincerely, Garu and Sarah Hyudou." Anger surged within him, but he knew he had to remain calm to avoid making a rash decision. He resolved to forge a fake passport to escape to New York with the money he had saved to buy a ticket and find an apartment. Issei arrived at the airport, where he registered and purchased a ticket to New York. After a series of questions, the clerk confirmed everything was in order. Issei expressed his gratitude and took a seat, lost in thought about his plans for the future. He was determined to finish his studies, buy an apartment, and hone his skills. After a 9-hour flight, Issei stepped off the plane, filled with excitement for his new life in New York. This was just the beginning of his journey as a hero. Meanwhile, in Kuo, a group of people, including 2 brown-haired individuals, a redhead, and their entourage, along with a Mao, an angel, and 2 faction leaders, sensed a loss they could not comprehend, unaware that they had lost someone who had once supported them. Chapter 1: New Preparatory School. In the previous chapter, Issei had shared his suffering in Kuo, where he was scorned, and how the only family that supported him, the Parkers, had been killed by the Hyudou family. He sought vengeance but held back, choosing instead to live in New York for a year to complete his studies. In New York, people were starting their day, with men heading to work and children going to school. Issei was running to his new preparatory school, Midtown, where he had to submit his paperwork and find his classroom. Since arriving in New York, he had begun his new life, renting an apartment and planning to find a part-time job. After a brief search, Issei finally located his classroom and knocked on the door, waiting for the teacher to respond. Warren greeted the new student, asking if he was indeed the newcomer. The professor invited him to come forward and introduce himself. Issei thanked the professor and addressed the class, introducing himself as Issei Parker from Japan, here to study in New York. "Thank you for introducing yourself, young Parker," Warren said kindly. "You can sit next to young Harry Osborn." After that introduction, Issei made his way to his assigned seat beside Harry. "Hello, you must be Harry," Issei remarked. "Yes, that's me." "You must be Issei," Harry replied. "You're new here." Following their brief conversation, Issei settled in as classes progressed, meeting his teachers and forming a friendship with Harry, as the others were not very talkative. Lunchtime arrived. Issei walked through the cafeteria with a tray of food, searching for a place to sit when he heard a familiar voice. "Hey, Issei, over here," Harry called, waving his hand. Issei approached Harry, and they enjoyed a pleasant conversation until Harry asked a question that made Issei's expression turn somber. "Hey, Issei, who do you live with?" Harry inquired curiously. Well, I live alone," Issei replied, sadness creeping into his voice. "My Uncle Ben and Aunt May were killed." This revelation shocked Harry and others who overheard. "I'm sorry, Issei, for bringing that up," Harry said, feeling a bit sad for him. "Don't worry about it, Harry," Issei reassured him. After that conversation, the day continued normally until the end of classes. After spending some time at his new high school and making a few friends, Issei headed to a store to buy a newspaper. After paying for it, he returned to his apartment, where he set his backpack down and began searching for a part-time job. He noticed an ad for a job opportunity. A photographer is needed at the Clarion newspaper, Issei thought, intrigued. "I'll go there tomorrow to see if I can get the job." With the prospect of work ahead, Issei started tidying up his apartment. After 2 hours of organizing, he finally sat on his bed. What a day, a new life, Issei reflected. "I made some friends at school." End of chapter. Apologies for the delay. I was busy with assignments and also went to see the movie Spiderman, No Way Home. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. Take care, and please no spoilers. With that, I'll sign off, remembering that, with great power comes great responsibility. Chapter 2. Discovering Abilities and a New Job. In the previous chapter, Issei had entered a new high school where he introduced himself to his teachers and made a few new friends, particularly with someone named Harry Osborn. After class, he went to buy a newspaper and then returned to his apartment. What will happen next for our protagonist? Let's begin. Narrator. In New York City, on a Friday when people were busy with their tasks, we find our protagonist waking up to prepare for school. He starts by combing his hair, brushing his teeth, and getting dressed before grabbing his backpack and phone to head to school. On the way, he listens to music. After an hour and a half, he arrives and sits next to Harry. "Hey, Issei, how are you?" Harry asked. "I'm good, Harry," Issei replied. "Just that today I'm going to the Clarion newspaper." "Oh, really?" Harry said, a bit surprised. "I didn't know you were a good photographer." "Yes, I'm pretty good at photography," Issei said. "Let's see how it goes." Before he could continue, their teacher arrived. "Good morning, everyone," Warren announced. "I want you to take out your chemistry books and read from page 1 to page." The students complied, pulling out their books and starting to read. After 20 minutes, they finished reading and began discussing what they understood. A few students answered questions until Warren posed one to the entire class. "What is the most dangerous chemical element?" Warren asked. The one who answers correctly will earn a point for their grade. This question left everyone in shock, and they began to think until someone raised their hand. "The chemical element is plutonium," Issei answered. "It's the element that can cause all kinds of cancers. If it oxidizes, it can increase its volume by 70%. This left everyone surprised, prompting the professor to acknowledge the point made by young Parker. As the lunch bell rang, the students began to leave, and Issei went to collect his lunch. While he started to eat, he looked up and noticed a red-haired girl. Suddenly, he felt a tingling sensation as he saw juice spilled on the floor, causing the girl to slip. Our protagonist intervened, catching her just in time, preventing her tray from spilling its contents. The girl remarked on his quick reflexes and complimented his eyes, to which Issei responded nervously, introducing himself as Issei Parker. She introduced herself as Mary Jane, and he thanked her for the compliment. Afterward, Issei returned to his seat to continue eating. He reached for his fork, but it stuck to his hand, and he accidentally shot out a web. Flash, incredulous, called out to him. Issei then headed to his locker, where he felt another tingling sensation as a fly buzzed by. Suddenly, a paper ball was thrown at him, followed by a fist aimed at his face, which he narrowly dodged. Flash, angry, accused him of thinking he was funny. Mary Jane intervened, suggesting that Flash's actions were a mistake. Flash's friend chimed in, pointing out that giving Issei a black eye would also be a mistake. In the ensuing chaos, Flash threw a punch at Issei, who felt the tingling sensation again. He saw the punch coming in slow motion and dodged it. Flash attempted another hit, but Issei evaded once more, turning his back to Mary Jane and her friends. As Flash tried to deliver a hook, Issei sidestepped and countered, sending Flash crashing to the ground at the feet of their teacher. Flash's friend, serious now, warned Issei that he was out of control, while others looked on in astonishment and disapproval. Issei decided to leave the scene, but Harry attempted to stop him. The scene shifted to Issei running into an alley, where he examined his wrist and hand, noticing something unusual. He pressed his hand against the wall for support and began to climb, feeling a surge of confidence. He shouted in surprise as he attempted to swing, but lost control and crashed into a sign, letting out a loud yell. Time passed, and Issei returned to his apartment after discovering his new abilities. He had also received a reprimand from his teacher for getting into trouble with Harry, although he insisted he wasn't at fault. Determined to prepare for the next day, he planned to visit the Daily Clarion to see if he could secure a job. He felt relieved that Saturday was the following day, allowing him to go to the Clarion. As he settled into bed, he reflected on his newfound powers and remembered the words of Ben Parker. With great power comes great responsibility. Unbeknownst to him, he was being watched by two figures, a white-haired woman and a red-haired man who shared a common thought. Who are you really, Issei Parker? They were none other than Valerie Lucifer and Gran Rojo. The chapter concluded, leaving readers eager to discover why Valerie began to watch Issei and what would happen next. In a moment of tension, Issei pointed quickly, feeling the webbing wrap around his feet. He felt a surge of anger as he confronted the unknown figure, demanding to know who they were and how they knew his surname, Hyudou. The mysterious person responded with a hint of amusement, revealing themselves as the formidable Great Red. Issei's eyes widened in realization. He had disrespected someone who stood alongside Trihexa. Feeling a rush of embarrassment, Issei quickly apologized, explaining that he hadn't recognized Great Red. The dragon reassured him, expressing that there was no need to worry and wishing him luck in his endeavors before creating a portal and departing. Grateful for the encounter, Issei thanked Great Red as he left. After their brief conversation, he exited the apartment and made his way to a bus stop, where he waited for 10 minutes. When the bus finally arrived, he boarded and searched for an empty seat, his mind racing with questions about why Great Red had visited him. Valerie watched from a distance, her heart heavy with sadness as she discovered the truth about her brother Brad, who had been stealing credit for others' achievements. Just the day before, she had planned to confess her feelings to him, but upon arriving at his house, she overheard something that shattered her heart. Brad had arrogantly boasted about how he intended to take credit for the accomplishments of his rival, the Hyudou, unaware that Valerie was listening. Anger and betrayal surged within her. She had been deceived by a fraud and had turned away from the true hero. Determined, she set her sights on earning his forgiveness through her own efforts. After that moment, Valerie's demeanor changed. She became cold towards Brad, even as Albion suggested she make the truth public. Meanwhile, Issei arrived at the Clarion newspaper building, where he approached the receptionist. He greeted her warmly, asking where he could find Mr. Jonah Jameson regarding a job opportunity. The receptionist directed him to the elevator, and after a short wait, he reached the 40th floor. Stepping out, he noticed a bustling office and approached a brown-haired woman. He inquired about Mr. Jameson, and she asked him to wait. After a brief exchange of names, Issei found himself waiting for 30 minutes until he was called in for his interview. Jameson, skeptical of Issei's age, asked him about his experience as a photographer and whether he had a place to live. After confirming both, Issei was offered the job, tasked with delivering restaurant photographs the next day. Overjoyed, he left the building and took a taxi back to his apartment, where he climbed the stairs and settled onto his bed, feeling a sense of accomplishment and a future that was his to shape. In the Hyudou mansion, Brad lounged on his bed, flanked by two red-haired girls and a dark-haired girl, all smiling. However, beneath those smiles lay a darker intent as he plotted to create his perfect harem, with the Sekeryuitei as the final piece. Unbeknownst to him, Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor, was trapped under a spell placed by Brad, unable to speak but filled with rage at the deception. As the chapter concluded, readers were left wondering if Drake would ever reveal the truth about Brad and if the Red Dragon would visit Issei. The story continued to unfold, with Issei's journey toward becoming a hero just beginning. In the city of New York, everything seemed calm. Birds chirped, and the sun shone brightly. However, in one apartment, our protagonist woke up with a scowl on his face. The reason for his frustration was a news report he had just heard on the radio. In recent months, New York had seen a surge in crime, robberies, assaults, and even murders. The police were struggling to keep up with the rising tide of lawlessness, and the crime rate had soared to an alarming 80%. He turned off the radio, no longer wanting to listen. He decided to get ready and head out for a walk, as it was Sunday. While exploring the city, he witnessed several robberies and assaults, which only fueled his anger and sense of helplessness. He longed to use his powers to help, but he knew that doing so would put him at risk of becoming a government experiment. With a heavy heart, he returned to his apartment that night and went to bed. The next day at Midtown High School, students began their classes. Most were attentive, while others had no class due to their teacher's absence. In history class, the teacher delivered shocking news that left everyone in disbelief. Before leaving, the history teacher informed the class that their math teacher, Mrs. Maria, had been tragically killed on her way to school. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke. The classroom fell silent, and the atmosphere turned tense. Our protagonist felt an overwhelming mix of sadness and anger, compounded by his sense of powerlessness. After classes ended, the students gathered to hold a small memorial for Ms. Maria. Following that tragic day, the school suspended classes for 2 days. Issei began to prepare for what would become the path of a hero. In the following chapter, Issei faced a tragic day as he mourned the loss of his teacher to the rampant crime in New York. 4 days had passed since her death, and he felt a deep sense of helplessness. It was then that he made a decision. He would help the people of this city, regardless of how others viewed him. The next day, New York was still a bustling city, and Issei hurried to school. Despite the loss of his teacher, life had to go on. Classes proceeded as usual, and he enjoyed time with his friends, Harry and Mary Jane. After school, they chatted about their plans. Harry mentioned that he would be playing video games since the teachers had a meeting the next day. Issei shared that he would be gathering photographs for the school newspaper, while Mary Jane planned to hang out with some friends. They continued their conversation until they reached the subway bus stop, where they bid each other farewell. After parting ways with his friends, Issei headed to his apartment, stopping to buy some supplies for his new project. Meanwhile, in Kuo, a faction meeting took place, discussing preparations for the upcoming wedding of Sekeryuitei and his fiancées, Rias and her entourage, including the powerful dragon Queen Tiamat, the Archangel Gabriel, the leader of the yokai Yasaka, the vampire leader Elmenhild, and the infinite dragon Ophis. The wedding was set to take place in a year, and everyone was invited. However, a certain red and white dragon, a descendant of Lucifer, was secretly preparing to reveal the truth about Max, who wore a smug smile, unaware that the truth would soon come to light. Returning to Issei, he had finished creating a simple yet effective suit. It consisted of a red and black jacket, red gloves, a mask with goggles, black pants, and brown boots. He set out, swinging through the streets until he reached the Empire State Building. There, he paused to take in the view, feeling the weight of his desire to be a hero and help those in need. As he reflected, memories flooded back moments when he had been labeled a pervert, the shame of being rejected by the person he loved, the Archangel Gabriel, who had cruelly dismissed his feelings. "I would never look at a pervert like you. "Your brother is better than you," she had said, leaving a lasting impact on him. Despite the pain, he remembered the support he had received from friends like Lavina, Suzu, Lashiana, Sikvera, Razor, and his late family. He recalled the words of someone he considered a father figure. "These are the years that shape who you will become for the rest of your life. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility." With renewed determination, Issei prepared to take a leap into his new life as a hero. Hello readers, I apologize for not updating sooner. This month has been busy with final evaluations for the first trimester, and I also apologize if this chapter is a bit short. I barely had time to write. The good news is that I received a break, so I will have time to write more chapters. I also want to thank you for supporting the story. We now have 2.58k reads. Thank you for your support. Without further ado, I wish you good nights and days. Chapter 6. A Leap of Faith. In the previous chapter, Issei had made the decision to become a hero, preparing a suit to help people, regardless of how they viewed him. He had balanced through the streets until he reached the Empire State Building, where he stood still, recalling the mistreatment and rejection he had faced. As he remembered these moments, he began to falter, but the thoughts of those who had supported him brought him back. He remembered the words of someone he considered a father, which inspired him to take a leap of faith. Meanwhile, in Kuo, a faction meeting was taking place for Brad's wedding day. Drake and Albion, with Valerie's help, were planning how to reveal the truth about Brad. What would happen next? Would Issei survive the fall? Would the truth be uncovered? Narration. Issei reflected on the moment he decided to take action. Just moments ago, he had been crafting his suit to help those in need. He recalled the times he had been belittled, especially when his brother was seen as a hero. As he prepared to leap, he thought of those who had supported him, Sikvera, Razor, Lavinia, and Suzu. He steadied himself, focusing on his clear objective to help those in need. He would do it for Uncle Ben and Aunt May, and with that, he took a leap of faith. As he began to fall from the building, people nearby noticed something descending and began recording. Just before hitting the ground, Issei shot out a web, which took a moment to catch. He swung between buildings before landing on the highway, running alongside cars and overtaking them. He launched himself from truck to truck, using his web to propel himself until he reached the building where he had started. He ran while observing people enjoying their meals, then shot another web to reach another building, leaping over obstacles and running up walls. Finally, he removed his mask to catch his breath, smiling before putting it back on to begin his journey as a hero. In that moment, a hero was born, one who would prove that no matter how others saw him as a threat or a villain, his actions would show that he was a hero who would help the helpless under the name of Spiderman. End of chapter. I apologize if this chapter is short. I had to use my imagination for this part. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, I wish you good nights. Goodbye. Chapter 7. In the previous chapter, Issei had taken a leap of faith despite being treated poorly and considered useless. Remembering those who supported him, he was determined to become a hero to help others. Narration. In New York City, everything was calm. Children played in the park, women watched over their children, men worked or rested, and police were in pursuit of thieves escaping down the streets. The thieves had lost the police in several alleys and decided to talk among themselves. One thief looked at the money and remarked on how pathetic the police were, while the leader of the thieves urged them to speed up their escape. Just then, an unexpected voice interrupted them, asking what their plan was. They turned to see a figure in a red and blue suit with a spider emblem on the chest, black pants, brown boots, and red gloves, wearing a mask with white eyes and black outlines. Seeing Spider-Man, the thieves were startled, as they recognized the vigilante who had been fighting crime in New York for 2 weeks. While 55% of the population viewed him with fear as a threat, 45% saw him as a hero who saved lives and fought against crime. The second thief exclaimed in fear, while the first thief stammered, recognizing Spider-Man. The leader, terrified, acknowledged Spider-Man's fame. Spider-Man responded with sarcasm, surprised they recognized him. The leader ordered his men to shoot, but before they could draw their weapons, Spider-Man swung in, using his web to disarm them. The leader attempted to run over innocent bystanders, But Spider-Man quickly intervened, using his web to pull the first thief away and slam him against a wall. He did the same with the second thief, leaving only the leader. Spider-Man used a vehicle to launch a web that stuck the leader to a light pole, then he crushed the front of the car and used 2 webs to immobilize it. Bystanders watched in awe as Spider-Man stopped the vehicle just in front of them, and they began to express their gratitude. As Spider-Man left the scene, he left a note for the captured thieves, signing it as their friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Soon after, police arrived to find the thieves trapped and saw the note left behind. Some officers smiled sincerely, while others looked on in confusion. In a nearby alley, Issei Parker, also known as Spider-Man, was changing out of his suit into civilian clothes. He stored his suit in a backpack, preparing to sell photos to the Daily Clarion for a modest sum. Setting that aside, he headed to his apartment to rest, as he had classes the next day and needed to be refreshed. Upon entering his apartment, he cooked something to eat and organized his things for school. Issei headed to his bed, where he lay down. The next day, he was seen walking to school, feeling calm as he went through his regular classes. He chatted with his 2 friends, Harry and Mary Jane. Upon arriving at school, he went to his classroom, where they were talking until their teacher arrived. The classes proceeded normally, with Issei participating and occasionally helping Harry with things he didn't understand. At the end of the day, Issei, Harry, and Mary Jane walked together, engaging in a peculiar conversation about a certain spider-themed hero. Harry, with a curious tone, mentioned the news about Spider-Man stopping a robbery. Issei pretended to be surprised, while Mary Jane pointed out a photograph that had Issei's name in the corner. This caused a bead of sweat to form on Issei's brow as his friends continued to talk. They soon reached the subway station, where they each took their respective routes. Issei arrived at his apartment, entering to drop his backpack on a small couch. Suddenly, he heard a voice that left him in shock. A mysterious figure greeted him, revealing herself as Valerie Lucifer, standing in front of his desk with a serious and sad expression. Issei wondered what would happen next and what intentions Valerie had in this unexpected situation. In the previous chapter, Issei had become a hero, spending 2 weeks fighting crime. While some viewed him as a threat, others saw him as a hero. He had even assisted the police during a robbery. However, the unexpected visit from Valerie, who appeared troubled, raised questions about her motives. At that moment, there was an uncomfortable tension between Issei and Valerie, with neither of them speaking. Issei was filled with doubts, pondering why she was there. As the chapter concluded, the story hinted at the growing harem surrounding Issei, which included characters like Latia Astaroth, Suzihimagina, Roygun Belphegor, Seki Vera Agars, Valerie Lucifer, Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, Injiv Leviathan, Nyx, Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, and Black Cat. With the story unfolding, readers were left eager to discover what would happen next. Valerie approached Issei, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. She had been reflecting on her past rejection of him and wanted to address it. Issei greeted Hakuryuku, and Valerie felt a pang of discomfort at the mention of his name, but she brushed it aside. She nervously asked Issei how he was doing, to which he replied that he was fine but questioned her presence. Valerie, with a heavy heart, expressed her regret for having rejected him. This confession stirred a hint of irritation in Issei, prompting him to ask why she had come to him now. Issei felt a bit annoyed as he considered Valerie's request for forgiveness. Valerie, looking sad, explained that she had discovered the truth. Issei, curious, asked what truth she had found. Valerie revealed that she had been the one to devise the strategies to defeat the Cows Brigade and that her brother, Brad, had taken credit for her work. This revelation surprised Issei, but he wanted to understand more, so he decided to speak up. Issei questioned how he could be sure Valerie was telling the truth, suspecting she might just be mocking him. At that moment, Albion, the dragon, spoke up, affirming Valerie's honesty. Issei recognized Albion's voice and was taken aback. Albion assured him that he would show him Valerie's memories from when she was about to confess to Brad, memories that revealed Brad's true nature and his theft of Valerie's credit. As Issei watched the memories unfold, he felt a mix of emotions. He was glad that someone had uncovered the truth, though he still felt a sting of anger upon realizing it. Valerie, sensing his turmoil, asked if he could forgive her, her voice filled with hope. Issei hesitated, expressing that despite Valerie's discovery, he still felt hurt from her previous rejection and that of Gabriel. Valerie's heart sank as she realized she might not gain his forgiveness, but Issei offered her a chance, stating she would need to work hard to earn it. Valerie, determined, promised to give her best effort. Albion then mentioned a plan that would reveal the truth, thanks to Drake, who had been under a spell cast by Brad but was now free. Issei agreed to participate in the plan. 50 minutes later, Issei was frustrated as he learned that the plan involved him being a photographer at a wedding. Albion and Valerie confirmed this, and Issei couldn't believe it. The plan was to expose the truth during the event. Valerie then decided it was time to leave, casting a magical circle to depart. She playfully called him Spiderman, which left Issei momentarily stunned. Before he could respond, Valerie had already vanished, leaving behind a note explaining that Albion had helped her discover his secret identity. Issei felt a surge of determination as he resolved to confront the white dragon responsible for his troubles. Meanwhile, in another location, a mysterious figure vowed to make Brad Hyudou pay for his deceit, promising to wait a year to exact revenge. A year had passed since Issei's unexpected visit from Valerie, who sought his forgiveness. Although he had not fully forgiven her, he had given her a chance. During this time, Issei, known as Spiderman, had been fighting crime in New York. The public viewed him as a hero, with a small percentage seeing him as a threat. Children admired him, and Valerie occasionally visited, hoping to earn his forgiveness. In the bustling city, Spiderman swung through the streets, keeping an eye out for crime. He decided to change out of his costume and head to the Daily Clarion to deliver photographs of his heroic deeds. Upon arrival, he found J. Jonah Jameson in conversation with a man named Azazel, who was looking for a photographer for the Hyudou family wedding. Issei was taken aback by this unexpected request. After a brief discussion, Issei learned he needed to be there by Friday and to wear a suit. Confused but determined, he left the office, his mind racing with thoughts about the plan he had with Valerie and Albion. He sighed, realizing he needed to prepare for the upcoming events. The next day, at Midtoe High School, students were celebrating their graduation, receiving diplomas and discussing their future plans. The atmosphere was filled with excitement as families congratulated their graduates, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Issei felt a deep sadness, remembering how the Parker family had helped him, only to lose their lives due to the actions of the Hyudou family. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice. A man with dark brown hair and a black suit approached him. Issei turned to him and respectfully acknowledged, "Yes, I am Issei Parker. Who are you?" The man introduced himself as Norman Osborn and congratulated Issei on his graduation, expressing gratitude for helping his son, Harry. Issei replied that Harry was his friend. Just then, Harry arrived on the scene. He greeted Issei and introduced him to his father. Norman noted that Issei had studied nanotechnology, to which Issei responded that he admired Norman's research. Norman mentioned that he also had a scientific background. After their conversation, Issei excused himself, bidding farewell to his friend and his father, and headed to his apartment to change into more casual clothing, preparing for the night ahead. As night fell over New York City, a figure emerged from the rooftop of a building, clad in a red and blue suit with a spider emblem on his chest. He donned his mask and leaped off the building, shooting a web to swing between the skyscrapers. Performing acrobatics in the air, he shot another web to land gracefully on a rooftop. This was the new Spider-Man, who began patrolling the city. He soon spotted a group of thieves robbing a bakery. The leader of the thieves ordered his accomplices to take all the money from the register, dismissing the pastries as unimportant. Suddenly, a red light illuminated the scene, displaying Spider-Man's face. He quipped about the robbery, suggesting the thieves should leave the pastries alone. Spider-Man swiftly shot a web at the leader's face. One of the thieves attempted to strike Spider-Man with a crowbar, but he dodged the attack, delivering a punch that knocked the thief out. The leader lunged at him, but Spider-Man evaded and swept his legs out from under him, ensnaring him in a web before leaving the scene, leaving the defeated criminals behind. The police arrived shortly after, finding the thieves tangled in webs. In a flashback to the day before the wedding, the leaders of various factions gathered at Hyudouo Academy to discuss the upcoming marriage of Brad Hyudou and his fiancées. They were trying to determine who would be the photographer for the wedding. Azazel, who had hired the photographer, was asked for the name. He revealed it to be Issei Parker, which caused an uncomfortable silence among the factions. The women reacted with disdain, except for one albino girl who spoke up. Zeus questioned Azazel's decision to hire Issei, expressing his frustration. Azazel explained that he had been surprised by Issei's photography skills, especially the impressive shots he had taken of Spiderman. On the day of the wedding, the church in Hyudouo was filled with important figures from various factions, along with the Hyudou family. It was the day Brad Hyudou would marry his fiancées. Issei, known for his previous reputation, arrived in a black suit with a camera, drawing surprised looks from the attendees. The women blushed at his presence, but Issei chose to ignore their reactions and took a seat. He was soon approached by familiar voices Lavinia, Suzu, and Latia. They greeted him warmly, noting how much he had changed. Issei felt a slight blush on his cheeks as he returned their greetings. Valerie also arrived and exchanged pleasantries with him. As they conversed, the ceremony began, and the priest asked the brides if they were willing to take Brad as their husband. They affirmed their commitment. Just as the priest was about to conclude the ceremony, a figure crashed into the church, wearing a green suit with metallic wings. The intruder announced it was time for Brad to pay for his actions. The atmosphere shifted dramatically as everyone wondered what this mysterious figure intended to do. The narrator described the tension in the room, noting how unexpected it was for someone to interrupt the wedding in such a dramatic fashion. A serious voice questioned the intruder's identity and motives. The figure introduced himself as Vulture, hinting at a deeper conflict with Brad that would unfold in the next chapter. Brad owed money because he had swindled the merchandise he sold. At this revelation, some were surprised by what their supposed hero had done. Issei had an inkling of the situation but was interrupted by a distraction. Rias expressed her frustration, stating that he had just ruined her wedding and that if he surrendered, he could leave safely. Brad pretended not to know her, claiming she was confusing him with someone else. The Vulture laughed, reminding him that they had made a deal a year ago. Suddenly, the Vulture began launching metallic feathers at everyone, creating chaos as he attempted to kidnap a woman. Chisato struggled to break free, calling for help. The crowd shouted for Brad to assist her. The Vulture declared that if Brad wanted Chisato back, he would have to fight him. With that, the Vulture took to the skies, leaving Chisato as his hostage. Silence fell over the crowd as they began to panic, urging their leaders to confront Brad about what had happened. Michael asked Brad what deal he had made, while Azazel pressed him for answers. Brad insisted he was innocent and that the Vulture was simply a madman. He pleaded for help to save Chisato. The leaders decided to send someone to rescue her, but elsewhere, Issei was trying to calm the frightened crowd, which included crying children. Suzu, Lavinia, and Tobio arrived to assess the situation. Issei explained that things were out of control and that they needed to send someone for help. As they worked to calm the people, the leaders debated who to send for over an hour. Suddenly, a broadcast from the Vulture interrupted them. He taunted Brad, stating that if he didn't show up in 5 minutes, Chisato would fall from a height of 80 meters. The Vulture announced he would be waiting at an abandoned construction site. Panic ensued as everyone looked to Brad for guidance, but he remained silent. With only a minute and 20 seconds left, confusion reigned. The leaders were at a loss, while Chisato's friends grew increasingly anxious. As the countdown continued, Issei made a decision. He dashed into an alley, with Suzu, Lavinia, and Tobio in pursuit. Issei quickly changed out of his clothes, revealing a Spider-Man suit beneath. His friends watched in shock as he prepared to swing into action. With only seconds to spare, Issei, now in his Spider-Man persona, began to swing through the streets toward the construction site. Meanwhile, Valerie was deep in thought, knowing that after this, the truth would come out in a meeting. As the countdown reached its final moments, despair filled the air. Chisato was crying, feeling abandoned, while her friends wept for her fate. Just as the vulture approached Chisato, he mocked Brad for doing nothing to save her. Chisato, in tears, expressed her disappointment, believing Brad had loved her. The crowd watched in horror as the vulture prepared to end Chisato's life. But then, a voice rang out, challenging the vulture and reminding him of his poor manners. The cameras turned to reveal Spider-Man, who had arrived just in time to kick the vulture and save Chisato with a web. Chisato felt joy and surprise as Spider-Man rescued her. The vulture, furious that his plan had been thwarted, was confronted by the police, who ordered him to land. As he attempted to escape, the police opened fire, determined to bring him down. Back at the church, everyone erupted in cheers for Spider-Man. Suzu, Lavinia, and Tobio were astonished, realizing that Issei had harbored feelings for Chisato despite his earlier behavior. Their thoughts were interrupted as Spider-Man landed gracefully, carrying Chisato on his back. She thanked him profusely, while the crowd continued to chant his name. Some of the Nikomata sisters sensed a familiar aura around their hero, recognizing it as Issei's. He felt a bit awkward but was focused on capturing the vulture. His name is Vulture. Chisato felt a bit embarrassed as she spoke, but she was interrupted by her friends who rushed over to her. They called out to Chisato, asking if she was okay. Penemu reassured her that she didn't have a scratch, while Yasaka expressed her relief. Gabriel thanked Spider-Man for saving their friend and asked how they could repay him. Asia added her blessings, and Irina echoed the sentiment. Spider-Man humbly replied that they didn't need to thank him, it was his duty to help the innocent. He then excused himself, stating he needed to go stop Vulture. With that he swung away, launching his web to confront Vulture. Meanwhile, Lavinia, Tobio, and Suzu had discovered his secret. Back with Vulture, he was attacking helicopters that were pursuing him when Spider-Man intervened. He greeted Vulture, asking how he was doing. Vulture, furious, called Spider-Man a pest and accused him of ruining his plans. Spider-Man jokingly corrected him, saying he was an arachnid, not an insect, and pointed out that Vulture had jumped the gun by not waiting for anyone to oppose him. Vulture then began to attack Spider-Man with his metallic wings. While Spider-Man dodged some strikes, a few grazed his suit. He retaliated by shooting webs, but Vulture managed to evade most of them, although one hit his hand. Vulture charged at Spider-Man, attempting to slam him into buildings to injure him, but Spider-Man escaped and led the fight to a different part of the city. Their battle was broadcast on television, and it appeared that Spider-Man had a slight advantage thanks to his spider sense. As Vulture attempted to strike, Spider-Man easily dodged and shot 2 webs at him, wrapping him up and slamming him into a building. They exchanged blows, and Spider-Man began to generate electricity in his hand. He playfully greeted Vulture before delivering an electric shock, causing Vulture to scream in surprise. Spider-Man continued his greeting, and with each repetition, Vulture grew more frustrated. Eventually, Vulture managed to land a punch on Spider-Man's face, but Spider-Man quickly shot a web to pull Vulture closer, striking his wings and trapping him. With Vulture ensnared in webs, Spider-Man carefully descended, presenting the defeated villain to the authorities. He handed Vulture over to the officers and swung away, greeted by cheers from the crowd celebrating his victory. The next day, Issei was feeling extremely nervous. In front of him stood Valerie, along with Suzu, Lavinia, Tobio, and Natsume, who were eager to interrogate him about his identity as Spider-Man. Issei firmly denied being Spider-Man, despite his nervousness. Suzaku insisted he was lying, and Lavinia and Tobio chimed in, mentioning that he had left his suit behind. They even had video evidence of him putting it on, leaving Issei speechless and cursing himself for being careless. Valerie found humor in his predicament, while Albion looked on. Finally, Issei admitted, "Okay, I am Spider-Man." This revelation shocked Natsume and Latia, who were eavesdropping from behind a door. Suzaku then asked how long he had been Spider-Man, to which Issei replied that it had been a year. Lavinia demanded an explanation, but Issei insisted that Latia and Natsume stop listening in first. He began to explain how he gained his spider powers during an incident at a laboratory, detailing the changes he underwent and the tragic loss of his family at the hands of his former relatives. He spoke of his move from Kuo to New York, where he found a new job and was motivated to become a hero after the death of his mentor. A somber silence fell over the group as they processed his story, feeling both impressed and saddened by the fate of the Parkers. Latia then asked who else knew about this. At that moment, Valerie tensed up, and Issei revealed that she and the others were aware. Valerie admitted she knew but had been told to keep it a secret. Before they could discuss further, Azazel entered the room with a serious demeanor, instructing them to attend a leaders' meeting. He pointed at Issei, emphasizing that he needed to come as well. 30 minutes later, the leaders of various factions gathered, including Odin, Yasaka, Zeus, Shiva, and the two dragon gods, to address the disruption caused by one individual at a wedding. Issei began the meeting, stating that they all knew the reason they were gathered. Yasaka mentioned Vulture, and Elmenahilde inquired about his issues with Brad. Zeus then prompted Brad to speak up, asking him why. Brad insisted that he did not know the person in question, suggesting that there had been a mix-up. This statement was met with a tense silence from Issei, who was struggling to restrain his anger at what he perceived as a lie. It was then that Drake spoke up, declaring that he would reveal the truth to the leaders. He stated that the bearer of the title had made a deal with that person and had evidence to support his claim. Shiva questioned whether Drake truly had proof. Drake affirmed that he did, asserting that the individual was a fraud who had stolen the achievements of his brother. This revelation led to a wave of laughter from the group, with the exception of Valerie, Suzu, Lavinia, Natsum, and Gran Rojo. Zenobia remarked that the individual in question was useless, while Asia added that he had not contributed anything. Rias, with an air of arrogance, commented that he was merely a burden and belonged to her noble lineage. The mocking continued, with Issei becoming the target of their derision, although he remained largely unaffected. Suddenly, a menacing presence interrupted the banter, emanating from a certain white dragon. Albion, with a serious demeanor, demanded silence from the group, emphasizing the importance of what Gran Rojo had said. Tiamat inquired if Valerie believed in Albion, to which Valerie responded affirmatively, expressing her trust in both Albion and Drake. Issei, visibly irritated, pressed for evidence, and Drake reassured him that he indeed had it. In the previous chapter, a villain named the Vulture had interrupted Brad's wedding, revealing that he had made a deal with him but had been deceived. To settle the score, he took Chisato hostage, challenging Issei to a fight at a construction site, giving him only 5 minutes to prepare. Issei, channeling his inner hero, managed to rescue Chisato and defeat the Vulture. However, Lavinia and Suzuka had witnessed the entire event, uncovering Issei's secret. They pressed him with questions until he revealed the truth about how he had become a hero. Their conversation was cut short by Azazel, who called for a meeting regarding the wedding interruption. It was during this meeting that the truth about Brad was revealed. Drake, Albion, and Valerie had exposed how he had stolen Issei's achievements. Everyone was in shock, but Issei left the scene only to encounter Razor, who handed him a paper revealing the buried secrets of the Parker family. Now, the factions would attempt to recruit Issei once more, and the girls who had rejected him would seek his forgiveness. In the underworld, the trial of Brad Hyudou, known as the Credit Thief, was about to begin. The truth had come to light a week prior, and the supernatural community was outraged. Angels, fallen angels, demons, and yokai all demanded justice. Issei addressed the assembly, stating the purpose of the trial. Michael, serious as ever, reminded everyone that Brad had betrayed his own brother by leaking information and technology to the enemy in exchange for recognition and women. As evidence was presented, the crowd reacted with disgust and anger. Brad, chained and furious, cursed Drake in his mind, feeling that everything he had built was crumbling. Drake, unyielding, reminded him that he deserved this fate. Issei announced that the leaders had reached a decision regarding Brad's punishment. He would be expelled from the Gremory faction, his magic sealed to prevent any further attacks against the factions. He would be forced to clean the dungeons with a toothbrush and would not be allowed to leave the underworld. The crowd was allowed to do as they wished with him, except for killing him. Brad protested, claiming his status as Sekeryuitei, but Odin silenced him, stating that even that title did not grant him the right to act as he had. The guards were ordered to take him away. After the trial, the leaders began searching for Issei, unaware that a red energy had escaped from Brad and was now wandering the streets of Kuro. Issei, meanwhile, was at the park where his girlfriend, Ryanair, had summoned him. He sat on a bench, gazing at the sky until he received a message from his friend Mary Jane. Their conversation was brief, with Mary Jane asking him to bring back a souvenir from Kuo. After their chat, Issei visited a souvenir stand to buy a keychain before renting a room at a hotel for the night, as he needed to return to New York the next day. The following day, Issei left the hotel after paying for his stay and took a taxi to the airport. As he traveled, he pondered how New York would be without him. After 2 hours, he arrived at the airport, checked in, and waited for his flight. His thoughts were consumed by the factions and their desire for his return, especially the girls seeking his forgiveness. He also devised a plan to free Drake and Albion from the sacred gears. The flight to New York was filled with these thoughts, and upon arrival, he took a taxi to his apartment, where he spent time sketching designs for future battles. His focus was interrupted by a news report about a robbery occurring 5 blocks away. Without hesitation, he donned his suit and swung out of his apartment, guided by the police to stop the crime. Meanwhile, at the Osborne mansion, Harry Osborne wandered aimlessly, feeling bored without Issei around. As he walked, he suddenly felt unwell and coughed up a bit of blood, which caught the attention of his father, Norman. Concerned, Norman feared that his son might be suffering from the same illness that had afflicted his mother. As the chapter concluded, the story hinted at the complexities of relationships and the challenges that lay ahead for Issei, who would soon face the consequences of his past decisions and the faction's desires. 2 weeks had passed since the trial of Brad Hyudou, where the truth had come to light. He had stolen his brother's achievements and sold information and technology to enemies, resulting in his punishment. Meanwhile, in New York, a bank robbery was underway. The police were in pursuit of the thieves, who were engaged in a conversation as they fled. One thief expressed their fortune, noting that Spiderman was preoccupied with bigger criminals. However, their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of the hero, who appeared in front of their vehicle, announcing his presence with flair. The chief thief attempted to maneuver the car to evade Spiderman but was thwarted by a web that ensnared him. The first thief's vehicle was immobilized against a light pole, and both he and the chief were pulled from the car, receiving a swift blow that left them unconscious. The trio of thieves was then trapped in webs just as the police arrived, who could only thank Spiderman for his timely intervention. In a nearby alley, Issei emerged after stopping the robbery and headed towards his apartment. He opened the door, placed his camera on a chair, and closed the window, feeling a sense of comfort in his home. However, he was soon interrupted by familiar voices that left him pale with shock. Lavinia and Suzuka stood before him, smiling in a way that sent chills down his spine. Issei's thoughts raced as he braced himself for what was to come. He found himself in a painful situation, being treated by Suzuka while Lavinia examined his suit and Latia flipped through Issei's notebook, looking at his costume designs. After tending to his wounds, Suzuka reminded him of the reason for his injuries, which was a result of a frying pan incident. Lavinia explained that it happened because he hadn't informed them of his departure. Issei, curious, asked how they had known where he lived. The 3 girls exchanged nervous glances. Latia hesitated, suggesting that revealing the truth might anger him. When pressed, they admitted that they had used a spell to see his memories while he was distracted. Issei was taken aback, expressing his outrage at their invasion of privacy. The girls apologized, feeling remorseful. Once the tension eased, Issei inquired about the aftermath of the faction meeting. Latia explained that after the truth about Brad was revealed, he faced judgment from the leaders, who decided on a punishment that allowed all supernatural beings to confront him, except for killing him. This revelation surprised Issei, leading him to ask about his former parents. Lavinia informed him that they had been arrested for a month, as they were complicit in Brad's actions. Issei, feeling indifferent about the factions, stated that they had trusted Brad and now had to face the consequences of their choices. The conversation continued until nightfall, when Suzuku, Lavinia, and Latia bid him farewell, departing through a magical circle. Issei donned his suit and exited through the window, ready to patrol the city for criminals. As he swung through the streets, thoughts of the factions occupied his mind, particularly their attempts to sway him with offers involving a certain redhead and her entourage. Suddenly, his spider sense tingled, alerting him to an incoming object. He dodged it and landed on a building, where he spotted a figure dressed in blue with a star on their chest, red gloves, and matching boots. The figure wore a mask that concealed their head, leaving only their mouth and eyes visible, with the letter I emblazoned on their forehead. In their hand, they held a red and white shield featuring a star in the center. The mysterious figure greeted Spider-Man, marking the end of the chapter. It was surprising that there had been a trial for his brother, who had faced his punishment. Their former parents had been discussing matters late into the night before bidding farewell to Issei. They departed through a magical circle, allowing Issei to don his hero outfit and patrol the streets. As he moved gracefully, questions swirled in his mind regarding the factions, but his thoughts were abruptly interrupted by an object hurtling toward him. He swiftly dodged, landing on a rooftop, where he spotted a figure dressed in unusual attire, holding the shield that had been thrown at him. What events would unfold in this story? Who was this mysterious individual? What intentions did they have for our protagonist? At that moment, an uncomfortable silence filled the area as an unknown person had attacked our spider hero, who was unaware of their identity until they decided to speak. The stranger introduced themselves as Captain America, explaining that they were curious about Spider-Man's abilities and reflexes, which had surprised them. Spider-Man, astonished, recognized Captain America as a member of the Avengers. He had admired the hero since childhood and was intrigued by the Captain's interest in his skills. Captain America handed Spider-Man a piece of paper with an address, instructing him to arrive at that location by 3 p.m. and not to be late. After their conversation, Captain America left, leaving Spider-Man amazed that a member of the Avengers had sought him out. Returning to the streets, Spider-Man resumed his patrol, observing that everything was calm before heading back to his apartment. The next day in New York City was peaceful, with birds singing and people going about their daily routines. Issei was on his way to the Daily Bugle to deliver photographs of Spider-Man fighting crime. Despite the negative comments about him, Issei remained unfazed, knowing he was doing the right thing. While waiting outside his boss's office, he took out his phone to play a game, becoming animated as he shouted in excitement over his progress. His loud outburst caught the attention of everyone around him, and he was soon interrupted by J. Jonah Jameson, who was on a phone call and demanded Issei to be quiet. Embarrassed, Issei fell silent, feeling the stares of his coworkers. After about 50 minutes, he found himself in Jameson's office, handing over a folder of photographs. Jameson surprised Issei with the news that he would receive his first paycheck, instructing him to collect it from Betty. Issei left the office, feeling happy and grateful. As he walked, he checked the time on his phone and realized it was 2:40 p.m. He noticed a note in his jacket reminding him of the address Captain America had given him. Quickly, he ducked into an alley to change from his civilian clothes into his hero outfit before heading to the designated location. Fast forward an hour and a half, the scene shifted to a large complex belonging to the Avengers, where a discussion was taking place regarding the Spider Hero. Falcon expressed concern about Spider-Man's tardiness, while Captain America reassured him that he would arrive soon. Falcon, a bit irritated, pointed out that Captain America had scheduled the meeting for 3 p.m. Captain Marvel chimed in, teasing Falcon about his excuses for being late. As they continued to bicker, Hawkeye suggested they focus on the new hero, Spider-Man, who had been fighting crime in New York for a year. War Machine speculated that Spider-Man might have encountered some trouble on his way. Scarlet Witch agreed, noting that everyone faced challenges sometimes. Banner added that Spider-Man might have had issues and couldn't notify them. Falcon, still skeptical, suggested that it could be a false alarm, but before he could finish, someone shot webs at the team. Falcon found himself ensnared, leaving only his face visible, while the others managed to free themselves from the sticky strands. Captain America, with his hands bound and without his shield, recognized the newcomer as Spider-Man, who landed gracefully in front of them, holding Captain America's shield. "It was a pleasure to meet the Avengers," Spider-Man said, standing confidently before them. Chapter 14. In the previous chapter, the unknown person who had attacked our spider hero introduced himself as Captain America. He wanted to learn about Issei's abilities, leading to a conversation where the captain handed Issei an address for the next day. Issei was excited as he received his first paycheck from his boss at the newspaper, El Clarin. After leaving the building, he remembered the place he needed to go to change into his suit. Meanwhile, in the Avengers complex, there was a discussion about the spider hero when an alarm sounded. The Avengers rushed outside, where someone began to shoot webs. Only the captain knew who it was when a web ensnared his hands, taking his shield, and Spider-Man appeared, introducing himself. The captain invited Spider-Man to the complex, wanting to recruit him for their team. At that moment, a silence enveloped the room as the captain stood before them. No one spoke until they heard a shout from Scarlet Witch, who exclaimed that Spider-Man's entrance was spectacular while she broke the web and approached him. This caused everyone to sweat nervously at her enthusiasm. Spider-Man responded, slightly flustered, that he was indeed the one they were speaking about and apologized for the webbing, saying he had lost his way in life. Suddenly, Falcon interrupted, asking Spider-Man to remove the web that had entangled him. Spider-Man apologized, explaining that it would take about 2 hours to dissolve. This revelation brought a wave of frustration to Falcon, who lamented about being trapped in webs and having to wait. After 2 hours, the Avengers and Spider-Man were in the lounge chatting when Bruce Banner asked Spider-Man who he was beneath the mask. Everyone was intrigued by the question. Spider-Man replied that he couldn't reveal his identity as it could endanger those he cared about. Captain Marvel chimed in, saying that they had gotten to know him a bit and that he seemed like a good person. She assured him they wouldn't disclose his identity. Captain America added that they could keep his secret as a sign of trust if he shared his name. Reluctantly, Spider-Man agreed and began introducing himself. Scarlet Witch went first, revealing her civilian name was Wanda. Captain America followed, stating his name was Steven. War Machine introduced himself as James Rhodes, and Hawkeye shared his name, Clint. Falcon announced his name as Sam, and Winter Soldier revealed his name was Bucky. Captain Marvel then shared her name, Carol. Finally, it was Spider-Man's turn. With a sigh of resignation, he revealed his civilian name was Issei Parker as he removed his mask. This surprised everyone as they saw the face hidden beneath. Clint, incredulous, remarked that Issei was just 15 years old. Issei corrected him, saying he was almost 19 but still 18. Falcon, serious now, challenged Issei, saying he wanted a rematch for getting tangled in his web. Issei teased Falcon, calling him irritable, and they decided to head to the training area. As they prepared, Clint stood in the middle, ready to start the match. Sam confidently declared he was ready to win, while Issei responded in kind. Clint signaled the start of the match, and Sam began throwing a series of punches at Issei. Issei dodged with some difficulty, which frustrated Sam, who accused him of only knowing how to evade. Issei insisted he could fight, and when Sam asked him to take it seriously, Issei obliged. Suddenly, Issei began to move swiftly, evading Sam's attacks with ease and countering with precise strikes to the openings left by Sam. In a swift maneuver, Issei swept Sam's feet out from under him, leaping to shoot webs at the floor and delivering a blow to Sam's stomach, leaving him defeated and unconscious. The others watched in surprise at Issei's skills, except for 4 who noticed he had been holding back. Issei picked up Sam and placed him on the couch, prompting Rhodes to ask how he had done that. Issei explained that he had simply used his agility and webs, while Wanda noted that Sam was quite fast. Issei mentioned that he often relied on his spider sense to anticipate danger. Curious, Carol asked about his spider sense, and Issei explained that it was a tingling sensation that alerted him to threats. Clint, serious now, asked why he had been holding back during their match. This question surprised everyone except for a few. Issei admitted he did it to avoid tiring himself out and because he wasn't sure how strong he truly was, but he knew it was enough to seriously hurt someone. Steve then asked if he always held back during fights. Issei confirmed this, and Steve posed a question that left everyone in shock. Did Issei want to become an Avenger? Issei, curious, asked why Steve wanted him to join. Steve explained that they had lost two teammates, Iron Man and Black Widow, during a previous battle, and they were looking to rebuild the team. Thanos, along with his army, engaged in a fierce battle over the Infinity Stones. Tony Stark managed to defeat Thanos by snapping his fingers, but he sustained serious injuries. Fortunately, a sorcerer intervened to prevent his demise. To summarize, the events unfolded similarly to those in Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, with minor changes. Since Issei was not present as Spider-Man, the battle at the airport took a different turn. The team had to rely on their strategy without Spider-Man's assistance. Like in Infinity War and Endgame, the battles were intense, but Doctor Strange was able to use the Time Stone to save Tony, who remained unconscious with several scars, waiting for the moment he would awaken. Upon hearing Steve's account, everyone felt a wave of sadness wash over them. Issei, however, was both upset and frustrated. He wished he could have helped in that battle, but he was occupied in Kuo, assisting the factions against the Chaos Brigade and the Trihexa. His thoughts were interrupted by Steve, who posed a familiar question. He asked Issei if he wanted to become an Avenger. Issei considered the question carefully, contemplating his response. In the previous chapter, Spider-Man had been conversing with the Avengers, answering their questions. Banner had inquired about the reason behind Spider-Man's mask, and the Avengers were eager to learn his true identity. After revealing himself as Issei Parker, Falcon challenged Issei to a friendly match, which he accepted and won. Then Captain America asked if he wanted to join the Avengers. Issei questioned why he was being asked this, recalling how the chapter would recount the group's struggles until the captain posed the same question. What would happen next? Would Issei accept or reject the offer? With that, the chapter began. The narrator explained that Issei was uncertain about accepting the proposal. Carol inquired why he felt that way. Issei sighed, sharing that he had a bad experience being part of a team where his ideas were often taken and he rarely received credit. Memories of his brother doing the same flashed through his mind. Clint reassured him that they would not behave that way. They often sought help from Banner, and whenever someone had an idea, they listened to see if it could be used. Rhodes added that they appreciated contributions, even if some ideas turned out to be less than perfect, as they could always improve upon them. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the room, breaking the ceiling and filling the space with dust. Everyone became alert until the dust settled, revealing a tall figure with long blonde hair, a beard, and wearing armor, pants, and boots, holding an axe. Everyone recognized him immediately. Thor greeted his friends, and while everyone returned the greeting, he noticed Issei. Thor acknowledged him, and they exchanged pleasantries about how each had been doing. The Avengers watched in surprise at the familiarity between the two. Curious, Thor asked why Issei was there. Issei explained that Thor's friends had proposed he join their group, but he was unsure about accepting after his previous experiences. Banner interrupted, surprised that the two already knew each other. They confirmed it, and Steve took the opportunity to ask Issei about the team he had been part of before. A heavy silence fell over the group, particularly affecting Issei. Thor spoke up, stating he didn't think Issei would want to share that experience, as it had been a negative one. Issei sighed, feeling resigned, and agreed that they should discuss it. Thor nodded in understanding. Issei began recounting everything he had endured with the factions, taking about 50 minutes to share his story. The Avengers listened, their emotions a mix of shock, anger, and sadness. They were astonished to learn that Issei had saved the leaders and gods to seal the Trihexa, demonstrating incredible bravery and nobility despite being human. However, they were furious with the faction leaders for ignoring someone who had provided them with strategies, only for those to be given to his brother. They felt sorrow for Issei, whose family had mistreated him, yet he had found support from Ben and May Parker, who treated him like a son before being tragically killed by his former family. Wanda and Carol were particularly enraged, imagining the torment they would inflict on those who had wronged him. Steve expressed their collective surprise at Issei's continued nobility despite his suffering. Falcon echoed this sentiment, marveling at Issei's determination to do what was right, even when ignored. Wanda, with sadness in her voice, remarked on the pain Issei must have felt for those he considered family. Issei smiled, reassuring them that such experiences were part of what made a hero. However, in their hearts, the Avengers shared a common thought. How could he smile after everything he had endured? As Issei prepared to leave, he donned his mask, stating that he would consider joining their team and would inform them of his decision later. He bid farewell to everyone and departed, leaving the Avengers to reflect on their hero, knowing he needed time. Meanwhile, in another location, a scientist prepared to end Spider-Man. An unknown figure confirmed their readiness, revealing himself as Alexei Mikhailovich Sitsevic. He declared that he would no longer be Alexei but would now be known as Rhino, showcasing his new armored form. Location: Fallen Angels faction, Azazel's laboratory. In a laboratory, Azazel was conducting experiments, this time creating something to assist the factions. After all, their hero had proven to be a disappointment, with all his achievements attributed to his brother. Azazel was working on a project called Titan, which aimed to possess the resilience of the X-Dragon Tannin, along with the ability to use and copy magic, and strength comparable to that of celestial dragons. However, he was unaware that this experiment would encounter a significant flaw. Chapter 16. In the previous chapter, Issei had informed Steve that he needed more time to consider their proposal, as his last experience in a team had left him feeling underestimated. The Avengers assured him they would not treat him the same way. Just then, Thor arrived, and everyone greeted him warmly. Issei and Thor shared a heartfelt reunion, prompting the Avengers to inquire about their connection. Steve pressed Issei for details about his previous team, but Issei hesitated to share his past struggles. Eventually, he recounted the supernatural events that led to his estrangement from them, leaving the Avengers to ponder whether he would accept their offer. Meanwhile, a new villain was being created with the intent to eliminate Spider-Man, while Azazel continued his project, unaware that something would go awry. What events would unfold next? Would Issei face a new enemy? How would Azazel's project benefit the factions? The chapter began with the narrator explaining that 3 weeks had passed since the Avengers had approached Spider-Man, who had requested more time to think. Setting that aside, the scene shifted to our web-slinging hero swinging through New York. Although he was aware of some disturbances, he felt at ease and decided to change out of his suit in a nearby alley, donning his civilian clothes as Issei Parker. As he made his way to the Daily Clarion, he was interrupted by voices coming from another alley. A criminal was trying to persuade a girl, saying she would have a good time with them. The girl firmly rejected their advances. Issei, noticing the situation, stepped in and called out to the criminals, demanding they leave the girl alone. The first criminal scoffed at him, questioning what he would do, while the second mocked him, asking if he would call for his mother. Issei, unfazed, retorted that he was not afraid of them, which only angered the two criminals and drew a laugh from the girl. The first criminal, now furious, warned Issei that he would regret his words. The second criminal added that they would teach him a lesson. They charged at Issei, with the first attempting to strike him. Issei skillfully dodged the attack, countering with a punch to the criminal's face. He narrowly avoided a knife move from the second criminal, leaving a cut on his jacket. Seizing the opportunity, Issei grabbed the second criminal's wrist, twisting it until he dropped the knife, and delivered a precise blow to his neck, rendering him unconscious. He then turned and struck the first criminal, knocking him out as well. The girl watched in awe as Issei stood victorious. Issei approached the girl, asking if she was all right. She thanked him for his help and requested assistance in getting to her feet. As he offered her his hand, he recognized her from her distinctive pink hair and yellow eyes. Roygun Belphegor, he said, surprised. Issei Parker, she replied, equally astonished to see the one who had aided the leaders of the factions, known as the unsung hero, for his achievements, which had been overshadowed by his brother. Roygun was curious about why Issei was in New York. He hesitated, crafting a quick lie about walking to work when he heard the commotion. She seemed unconvinced but accepted his explanation, thanking him again for his assistance and suggesting they could simply use first names. Issei agreed, bidding her farewell as he headed to the Daily Clarion to submit his photographs. Upon arriving, he entered the building and made his way. However, when he opened the door to his boss's office, he found J. Jonah Jameson being held by the collar by a figure clad in rhinoceros armor. "Who the heck are you? Why did you destroy my door?" Jonah demanded, anger evident in his voice. The armored figure introduced himself as Rhino and explained why he had broken in. Johann expressed his frustration, questioning why Rhino wanted information he didn't possess. Rhino insisted that Johann had the details he sought, specifically about the photographer who took pictures of Spider-Man. This revelation surprised everyone, including Issei, who realized he needed to speak up. Johann admitted he didn't know who the photographer was, signaling for Issei to leave. Understanding the cue, Issei made his way to the cleaning room to change into his suit and prepare to save his boss. Back with Rhino and Johann, Rhino grew angry, insisting Johann was lying. Johann repeated that he had no knowledge of the photographer, but their conversation was interrupted by an elderly woman. She chastised Rhino for being too old to act like a bully, to which he retorted, questioning her involvement. Just then, Spider-Man made his entrance, teasing Rhino about his appearance and offering him a mirror. Rhino, determined to confront Spider-Man, declared he had finally found him. Spider-Man corrected him, stating he was an arachnid, and challenged Rhino to catch him. As Spider-Man swung into action, Rhino smashed through walls in pursuit. The chase intensified, with Rhino demolishing everything in his path. Spider-Man shot webs at Rhino, causing minimal damage, but Rhino, growing frustrated, hurled a car towards civilians dining nearby. Spider-Man quickly intervened, using his webs to stop the vehicle, but it served as a distraction, allowing Rhino to grab Spider-Man by the face and slam him against a wall, breaking windows in the process. Suddenly, police gunfire interrupted Rhino's assault, and an unknown captain ordered him to surrender. Rhino scoffed at the captain's authority, while the captain introduced himself as Captain Stacy and informed Rhino he was under arrest for endangering New Yorkers. Rhino laughed, confident in his strength, and charged at the police, shrugging off their attacks due to his heavy armor. He soon had Captain Stacy by the neck, mocking him. Just then, a bowling ball struck Rhino, causing him to turn and see Spider-Man with a poker face, nervously hoping his plan would work. Rhino, enraged, prepared to charge at Spider-Man, who skillfully dodged the attack. However, Rhino began to struggle, sweating heavily from the weight of his armor. Spider-Man realized that the armor was exhausting him and knew he had to prevent Rhino from recovering. He quickly devised a plan, grabbing a manhole cover and spotting several pipes that could help him. Spider-Man called out to Rhino, luring him to break a section of the road. When Rhino found no hero waiting for him, he was caught off guard by smoke that began to suffocate him. Spider-Man clung to the ceiling, avoiding Rhino's attack, which instead destroyed more pipes, creating a heat wave that overwhelmed Rhino, causing him to collapse. As police arrived with a forklift to take Rhino away, Spider-Man emerged from his hiding spot. A police officer approached him, asking for a photo for his son, a fan of Spider-Man. Spider-Man obliged, and as the officer took the picture, Captain Stacy arrived, expressing his pleasure in meeting Spider-Man. They exchanged pleasantries, and Spider-Man thanked the captain for his support before swinging away. Later that night, Issei returned to his apartment, where he found Lavinia and Suzaku sleeping on the couch. He carefully carried them to their beds, letting out a soft sigh and whispering goodnight. In Azazel's laboratory, he was finishing up his experiment called Titan, which only needed a chip to receive commands. He planned to install it the next day, unaware that an alert on his computer indicated the experiment was malfunctioning, causing chaos in the lab as it broke through the ceiling, revealing the angels with a singular destructive purpose. End of chapter. It seems that the text provided is incomplete and does not contain enough content for me to edit or revise. Please provide a more substantial excerpt or the full text you would like me to work on. Issei found himself contemplating whether he should assist the factions. The experiment aimed to dismantle the fallen angel faction, and with that thought, the chapter began. It had been 2 days since the battle between Spider-Man and Rhino, during which Issei had been resting and recovering. Lavinia and Suza had been concerned for his well-being, but they were relieved to see him in good spirits. Setting aside those matters, The scene shifted to the community surrounding Issei's apartment, where he was busy sorting out various issues. The reason for his preoccupation became clear as the story unfolded. Today was the day Issei would enroll at Empire State University. He finished organizing his things and headed to the apartment door, leaving to catch the metro bus while listening to music along the way. In the underworld at the Gremory Castle, Rias reflected on her feelings. She felt guilty for making Issei suffer and wished they had known the truth about Brad. If they had, things might have turned out differently. After the truth was revealed, all supernatural beings began to argue and demand that the leaders take action against Brad for his deeds. Rias lamented the consequences that had befallen everyone, including Issei's parents, who had been harmed because of the chaos. She hoped for forgiveness from her friends, Aquino, Asia, Zenobia, Irina, Rosweiss, Serafal, Gabriel, Penemu, Tiamat, Yasaka, Elmenhild, Ophis, Mio, and Chisato. Meanwhile, in Search's office, he was focused on his duties as a Mao when thoughts of a certain brown-haired individual crossed his mind. He was suddenly interrupted by a magical circle that summoned Azazel, Penemu, and Baraquil, all of whom appeared injured. Search was taken aback, and Azazel urgently requested a meeting before collapsing alongside the others. Search complied, sending a message through a magical circle to gather the leaders and another to the Citri Hospital for the fallen angels. An hour later, in the Citri Hospital room, Azazel and Penemu regained consciousness. The leaders were anxiously waiting for them to wake up. Michael expressed concern over their injuries, while Yasaka asked what had happened. Azazel grimly explained that the fallen angel faction was nearly destroyed, attributing the disaster to himself. Penemu added her frustration, blaming Azazel's reckless creation for their plight. Odin demanded an explanation, and Azazel detailed his failed experiment called Titan, which was meant to enhance a person's abilities to rival even the strongest beings. However, it had gone awry and began attacking everyone. Though it was sealed, they were uncertain how long it would hold. The atmosphere grew tense as Azazel displayed an image of the devastated Grigory. Odin suggested preparing warriors to face the threat, and Yasaka agreed, prompting everyone to assess the situation and strategize. Back with Issei, he arrived at Empire State University, searching for the enrollment office. After waiting in line for 30 minutes, he finally reached the front. He submitted his papers to enroll in the science program. The staff member informed him that his documents were in order and that he would need to return in 2 months for an entrance exam. Grateful, Issei thanked her and left the university. On his way to the metro, he noticed 2 children playing with elderly individuals, which brought a bittersweet smile to his face as it reminded him of the family he once had. This triggered a memory from a year and 4 months ago at the Parker household, where Issei was feeling down after confessing his feelings to the Archangel Gabriel, only to be rejected. His Aunt May entered, concerned about his tears. After comforting him, she encouraged him to find happiness despite the pain of rejection, reminding him that true worth lies beyond appearances. She assured him that one day, Gabriel would realize her mistake. Returning to the present, Issei reflected on his aunt's wisdom as he rode the metro bus back to his apartment. After a 40-minute journey, he arrived home, where he needed to pay the rent. He began to unpack his things, knowing he would speak with Suzaku and another person the next day to help him create a suit. The chapter concluded, leaving readers eager for what was to come next. Children were playing with someone when memories of their family flooded back, prompting a bittersweet smile. Soon after, they remembered to ask Suzaku and another person for help in creating a suit. Meanwhile, Rias was narrating the events unfolding within the factions. In Search's office, he was busy with his duties for Mao when he was taken aback by the sight of Azazel, Penemu, and Baraquil emerging from a magical circle, visibly injured. Azazel instructed him to quickly arrange a meeting of the factions before collapsing. Search complied with the request, and after an hour, they gathered at the Citri Hospital, where all the leaders awaited the awakening of Azazel and Penemu. Once they regained consciousness, questions arose, and both answered that Grigory had nearly been destroyed due to an experiment conducted by Azazel. Although the experiment would be sealed, they were uncertain about how long the seal would last. They would devise a plan to defeat the threat. What would happen next? Would the factions come up with a strategy to overcome the Titan experiment? Would Issei create the new suit? Without further ado, let the chapter begin. In the city of New York, on a calm day, people moved about peacefully. In a certain apartment, a young man with chestnut hair was contemplating the materials needed to create a new suit. He had no suitable place to work, and after 20 minutes of deep thought, he remembered a piece of paper with a magical circle that had been given to him in case he needed to travel somewhere. He activated it, intending to go to a bar he was familiar with, and the magical circle appeared beneath him, teleporting him to that location. Time jumped to the afternoon. He emerged from the circle in front of the bar and entered, taking a seat. A familiar face approached him. The bartender asked what he would like to order. The young man replied that he would only be there for a short time and asked if the bartender didn't recognize him. The bartender, surprised, realized it was indeed him. The young man introduced himself as Issei and expressed his surprise at seeing the bartender, Tobio, there. They exchanged pleasantries, and Tobio inquired about Issei's visit to New York. Issei mentioned that everything was calm. Tobio then asked if he was looking for Suzaku and Natsume. Issei confirmed that he needed their help. Tobio was curious about the nature of the assistance Issei required. Issei explained that he wanted to check on them and needed help creating a new suit. Tobio expressed his admiration for Issei's intelligence but questioned why he needed their help. Issei admitted that he lacked the materials to create the suit and added that he had come to visit them. Their conversation continued until Suzaku and Natsume arrived, surprised to see Issei. They greeted him, and Issei explained that he was there to say hello and needed their assistance. Suzaku and Natsume were willing to help, and Issei was pleasantly surprised by their willingness. Natsume apologized for not being able to assist him earlier, but Issei reassured her that it was fine since they didn't know about his situation. Issei then showed them his notebook with the design and materials needed for the suit. Suzaku suggested that someone else could also help them, and Issei was eager to find out who. After some discussion, they prepared to create a magical circle beneath them and bid farewell to Tobio. In the underworld in the territory of Agars, a magical circle appeared in front of a castle. The trio stepped out, and Issei recognized the castle and its surroundings. A guard approached and asked who they were and what they wanted. Each introduced themselves, and the guard was taken aback upon hearing Issei's name. He quickly apologized for his rudeness, which left Issei surprised. Suzaku whispered to him that the guard recognized him due to his past accomplishments. Issei explained that they were searching for someone. Before he could continue, the guard interrupted, asking whom they were looking for. Suzuka mentioned they were looking for Sikavera Agars. The guard agreed to check for her and began to cast a magical circle. After waiting for 20 minutes, the guard informed them that Sikavera was in the back of the castle and instructed them to follow him. As they walked, they chatted about Issei's experiences in New York. Upon reaching the back of the castle, they found Sikavera, who appeared serious as always. A familiar voice broke the tension, and Sikavera turned to see Issei, accompanied by Suzaku and Natsume. She approached Issei and embraced him, expressing her disbelief at seeing him. Issei confirmed his identity and explained that he had been in New York. Suzaku, feeling a bit jealous, reminded Issei that they had come for his request. Issei reluctantly released Sikavera from the embrace, and she inquired about their visit. Natsume explained that they needed her help because Issei wanted to create a suit. Sikavera agreed to assist them, surprising Issei. She asked to see the design for the suit, and Issei opened his notebook to show her. They all nodded in agreement and began working on the suit together. 1 hour and 45 minutes later, Issei, along with Suzaku, Natsume, and Sikavera, stood in the castle having completed the suit, which was now stored in a suitcase. Issei expressed his gratitude to Sikavera, who reminded him that he could always ask for her help. Issei requested Suzaku to send him back to his apartment, and she agreed, creating a magical circle beneath him. As Issei prepared to leave, he bid farewell to the girls, thanking them for their assistance. They returned his farewell, and Issei departed, leaving the trio in silence. Suzaku suggested they leave the castle, and Sikavera agreed. They exited, leaving Sikavera behind. In New York, Issei appeared in his apartment via a magical circle, suitcase in hand. He placed the new suit on his bed, knowing he had to pay his rent. He stepped out with the money to give to the landlord, who was busy but acknowledged Issei with a gesture to leave the payment on the phone mounted on the wall. Issei understood and left the money before returning to tidy up the mess he had left behind. After 30 minutes of cleaning, he glanced at the suitcase containing his new suit and decided to take it to the rooftop. Time jumped forward 40 minutes. On the rooftop of a building, someone opened the suitcase, ready to unveil the new creation. The door opened, and he began to run, leaping onto the rooftops and gliding along the edges. He launched himself, swinging a web while performing a graceful turn, showcasing a spider emblem on his chest and back. His suit shimmered in silver and black. As he swung through the city, he exclaimed with excitement about New York, feeling the thrill of the moment. Everything seemed normal until he landed on a rooftop. He admired his suit, expressing gratitude to his friends for their help. Suddenly, his phone rang, and he noticed it was a call from Harry. Issei answered, curious about what Harry wanted. Harry greeted him and asked how he was doing. Issei replied that he was fine, and Harry mentioned he had a question. Issei inquired if Harry needed something. Harry hesitated before revealing that he might not be around for a while because he was leaving the country. Issei was taken aback by the news. Wait a minute. Location: Demon Faction Meeting Room. In the Demon Faction, the leaders were in high spirits, and the reason was simple. Azazel had recalled where Issei was after the reckless experiment he conducted. Just days before the wedding, he had hired a photographer in New York, which was reported in the Clarin newspaper. The photos, featuring Spiderman, revealed the location of Issei's apartment. Tomorrow, they planned to convince him to join them. Chapter 18, 2-2. This is the second part of Chapter 18. I forgot to label it as 1-2, but I will edit that to start the chapter. Present day. In the apartment of our brown-haired protagonist, he was pacing back and forth. The reason for his agitation was his best friend, Harry, who had gone on a personal trip. Something felt off, as Harry had been coughing up a bit of blood and appeared paler than usual. Issei decided to investigate later but was interrupted by a magical circle of red, blue, gold, and gray, from which emerged people he never wanted to see again. Among them were Circe, the current Mao of the underworld; Azazel, leader of the fallen angels, or what remained of the faction; Archangel Michael, leader of the angels; Odin, leader of Asgard; Yasaka, leader of the Yukai faction. Behind them stood the DXD team along with the Citri entourage and the Hakuryuku team, without Valerie. Circe greeted Issei with an overly familiar tone, and Issei responded coldly, questioning why he was being addressed with such familiarity. Michael chimed in, asking why Issei was so unfriendly, to which Issei retorted, recalling how he had been mistreated and how his brother had spread falsehoods about him. Azazel apologized, claiming ignorance about the situation. Issei challenged them, asking how the Hakuryuku had learned the truth before they did, questioning their intelligence. The unexpected turn of events left everyone speechless, but a group of women spoke up. Rias, in an authoritative tone, declared that Issei was her next pawn and fiancé, demanding he return with them and explain his actions. Aquino added that Issei owed them many explanations, while Kaneko called him bad. The others echoed similar sentiments, but Issei firmly responded, questioning their right to demand his return, reminding them of their claims that Brad was their true love, while he was being used as a toy in the underworld. This revelation shocked the supernatural beings, leaving them to wonder how Issei knew such details. Yasaka, with a sad expression, admitted their unfairness and asked for his help. Issei coldly stated that their needs were not his concern. Kuroka chimed in, acknowledging their harshness and expressing regret, while Asia pleaded for Issei not to be harsh with them. Despite their pleas, Issei shouted for them to be quiet, expressing his frustration at their insincere apologies after they had rejected him. The others felt their hearts break at his words, but Azazel interjected, asking for Issei's help, acknowledging their past mistakes and mentioning a looming threat. Issei questioned what danger could exist if they had the DXD team. Odin explained that a problem had arisen concerning a Titan project initiated by Azazel, which had failed and resulted in the revelation that destroyed 88% of the fallen angel faction. The gravity of Odin's words left a heavy silence, and everyone watched as Issei approached Azazel, expecting him to offer help. Instead, he shocked them all. With a powerful strike, Issei hit Azazel, knocking out 4 of his teeth. Anger radiated from Issei as he confronted Azazel, demanding to know if he was foolish or what he had been thinking. Azazel remained silent, fully aware that Issei was right. After this revelation, Issei attempted to calm his anger, stating that he would not help them after Azazel's blunder, leaving them to wonder why. The characters were reminded that they were human and could not engage in the supernatural, and there was nothing they could do to help unless it was not a bother. They could leave. This left the leaders in a state of agitation, prompting them to use a magic circle to depart, just like the group from DXD. After they left, Issei donned his suit to patrol the city, trying to calm his mind as he swung through the streets. Suddenly, he heard a cry for help and rushed into action. He spotted a group of thieves escaping with stolen money. Just then, Spiderman landed in front of the thieves, startling them. They had no time to react before being swiftly subdued by the web-slinger, who left them tangled in webs on a nearby post. Grateful citizens expressed their thanks to him. Location: Faction of Fallen Angels. In the faction of the Fallen Angels, what remained of a seal began to crack until it exploded, revealing a figure with a sinister smile. Titan. This seal was a bit difficult to break, Titan remarked. But factions, consider this a warning to prepare yourselves. The destruction of the supernatural will begin, and no one can stop me. Haha. Marked by Brad were Rias Gremery, Aquino Jimena, Kaneko Tuju, Asia Argento, Zenobia Quarta, Irina Shidu, Rossweiss, Penemu, Ravel Phoenix, Kuroka Hellcat, and Elmenhild. Unmarked were Yasaka, Serafal, Gabriel, Mio, Chisato, and Ophis. The chapter concluded, hoping the readers enjoyed it, and apologizing if it was a bit short, as it had been planned that way. In the previous chapter, Issei sought the help of Suzu, Natsum, and Sikvera to create a new suit. They agreed to assist him, and after much effort, he prepared to test his new outfit. However, he received a call from his friend Harry, informing him that he would not be in New York due to a trip. Issei sensed that Harry was hiding something and planned to investigate later. His thoughts were interrupted by familiar faces from the factions, who requested his help. He declined, stating that those were their problems. Meanwhile, Titan had escaped the seal with a clear objective: to destroy the factions. What events will unfold now? Will Titan succeed in his destruction? Will Issei assist the factions? Is Azazel foolish for creating Titan? Without further ado, the chapter begins. Narrator. In New York City, life was calm as people went about their daily activities. Our spider hero swung through the city, enjoying a relaxing day. He paused atop a building, surveying the skyline, contemplating whether something interesting might occur that would require his assistance. Meanwhile, in another location. Demon Faction Leaders Meeting. At the leaders' meeting, various mythological figures gathered to discuss a concerning matter regarding an experiment that had turned into a threat. Sershei expressed his pleasure at seeing everyone. Yasaka responded in kind, while Odin greeted him with a casual remark. Zeus inquired about the purpose of the gathering, and Shiva echoed his curiosity. Sershei explained that they needed to address a specific threat. Azazel revealed that it stemmed from an experiment that was being conducted. Zeus asked what actions they should take, and Michael informed them that a group they had sent to check on the seal had returned with one survivor who bore severe injuries. The survivor claimed to have broken the seal and eliminated everyone else. This revelation left the leaders in a serious state as they began to assess the situation. Meanwhile, the group from DXD and the Mao cadre were discussing their options. Rias pondered what Issei would do in such a situation. Aquino remarked on Issei's brilliance, suggesting he would be of great help. Kaneko noted that Issei had refused to assist due to his brother's actions. Kuroka expressed her disdain for Issei's brother, while Asia hoped that Issei would forgive them. Serafal believed that Issei would come to their aid, despite his resentment over their previous rejection. Gabriel agreed with Serafal, and Penemu echoed her sentiment. Suddenly, a loud explosion jolted everyone into alertness. The leaders and others rushed to investigate the source of the blast, only to discover that a part of Lilith's capital had been destroyed. Many were injured, and some had tragically lost their lives. A magical circle appeared before Michael, Zeus, Shiva, Yasaka, and Elmenhild, leaving them in shock. Circe and Azazel returned to the castle to discuss the incident. Circe, serious, demanded to know what they had been told. The leaders responded in unison that their faction had been attacked. Azazel questioned how this could happen without prior warning, and Zeus admitted they did not know who had orchestrated the attack, but it had caused significant damage. Michael and Shiva confirmed that they had suffered similar losses, and Yasaka and Elmenhild echoed their concerns. Serafal speculated on the identity of the attacker. A mysterious voice interrupted, claiming to be the cause of their troubles. The leaders turned to see a figure with black hair and dark eyes, dressed in a white jacket over a black shirt and pants, and black boots. The appearance was reminiscent of a Titan, and some recognized him with shock. The Titan greeted the factions with a mocking smile, asking if they wouldn't offer him a warm welcome, especially Azazel. Azazel, frowning, questioned the Titan's intentions, reminding him of the destruction he had caused. The Titan retorted that Azazel should have anticipated the consequences of his actions. Circe demanded to know why the Titan had come. The Titan, in a childish tone, claimed to be visiting but quickly revealed his true purpose: to mock them. Zeus, irritated, challenged the Titan, who responded with confidence, asserting his strength and calling Zeus a hypocrite. Michael asked the Titan why he accused them of hypocrisy. The Titan revealed that he was aware of the leaders' past, including their defeat of the Cows Brigade and the sealing of the Apocalypse Beast, calling it a foolish act since their supposed pillar was a liar and a fool. This revelation left the leaders silent, some angry and others regretful. The Titan continued, expressing his disdain for their hypocrisy and lies, stating that Issei Hyuodou, or rather Issei Parker, possessed something they never had: the determination to never give up. He noted that Issei had never sought recognition or reward, yet he had helped them, while they had only hurt him by labeling him a useless pervert, which he was not. The Titan then offered them a chance. Yasaka asked what this opportunity entailed. The Titan challenged them to bring their best warriors to fight him, declaring that they were nothing more than insignificant insects to him. This declaration enraged the leaders, who felt underestimated. They began to hurl insults at the Titan, calling him weak. However, the Titan interrupted them with a powerful aura, expressing his disgust for their insults. He warned them to be silent if they did not wish to face dire consequences. He was currently restraining himself from causing harm, but he would give them time to prepare, as he intended to dismantle their factions and the supernatural world. As a demonstration, the Titan conjured a massive fireball and hurled it toward a section of Lilith's capital, obliterating 70% of it. The leaders were left in shock and fear as the Titan departed, leaving them with a singular thought: they were in deep trouble. A certain group realized they needed to alert someone for help. Returning to Issei. Issei returned to his apartment after a typical day, having thwarted a few muggings. He headed to his bed to rest, unaware of the challenges that awaited him. End of chapter. The chapter begins. Narrator. 6 days had passed since Titan declared his intention to destroy the factions, plunging the supernatural beings into chaos. However, the leaders assured everyone that there was no cause for concern, as the DXD team would confront the threat alongside the Hakuryuku team and Slashdog. Yet, the Slashdog team had informed Issei about the situation, leaving him in shock. The revelation posed a danger to both the supernatural and human worlds. Issei revealed that the factions had discovered their location, which surprised the Slashdog team. He also mentioned that he would not assist them, leaving them somewhat bewildered. They understood, however, that part of the reason for this was the hypocrisy of the supernatural beings, including the leaders. Meanwhile, in New York City, life continued peacefully. People went about their daily routines, some working, others spending time with family. 2 children were playing with a ball when a truck sped by. "Come on, sister, get the ball," the boy called to his sister. "I'm coming, brother," the girl replied. Suddenly, they heard the sound of the truck and turned around, instinctively closing their eyes. But they were saved by Spider-Man, who had spotted them while swinging through the city and landed beside the children. "Kids, don't run like that in the street," Spider-Man cautioned. "Yes, Mr. Spider-Man," they replied in unison. "Take care, kids," he said as he waved goodbye, launching a web to ensure their safety while the crowd applauded. Unbeknownst to him, a red-haired figure watched from a distance, holding a green orb and observing the hero's actions. "What do you think, Drake? Is he a good bearer?" the red-haired figure asked. "Yes, Great Red," Drake replied, referring to the red-haired figure. "But it's not the right time to speak with him." "Of course, Drake. After all, the factions need his help," Great Red responded. They departed, contemplating their next move. Location: Nordic faction, Odin's castle. Inside Odin's castle, the god was asleep but restless, sweating and moving as if trapped in a nightmare or vision. Odin's dream. He saw a devastated landscape, specifically the city of Hyudouo, engulfed in flames with destroyed buildings and bodies scattered everywhere. Among them, he recognized a group he knew well, the DXD team, along with Hyudouo and an unfamiliar group. To his surprise, Spider-Man was among them, his suit torn and bearing serious injuries, clutching his arm. Before them stood a terrifying figure Titan, who had taken on a new, intimidating appearance. Blood dripped from various wounds, but he wore a sinister smile as he spoke. "The Great Alliance, the strongest. I thought you were superior, yet you needed the help of humans," Titan mocked. "It doesn't matter, you will all die here." He began to conjure a black sphere surrounded by flames, looking down on them with a sense of superiority. "No!" Odin cried out in desperation. End of Odin's dream. Odin awoke with a start, his heart racing. This would happen in the future, he thought, and he needed to warn the leaders. He quickly created a circle to summon Circe for an emergency meeting. It took 2 hours for the request to be fulfilled, and soon the other leaders arrived. "Why have you called us, Lucifer?" Shiva inquired. "I called you because Odin had a vision," Circe explained. "What was that vision, Odin?" Yasaka asked. "I saw Titan achieve his goal," Odin revealed. This left everyone in shock until Michael spoke up. "How is that possible?" Michael asked, fear evident in his voice. "How did he achieve his goal?" "He gained a new appearance and power that surpasses ours," Odin replied. As they discussed the vision, they realized they needed to send the DXD team, along with Hyudouo and into action. Meanwhile, in the Fallen Angels faction, Titan sat, gazing at a destroyed building. You might wonder why he was staring at something so ruined. The reason was simple. Inside, he held a group of kidnapped children from various races, including demons, angels, fallen angels, and yokai. Among them were 2 particularly important children, Milika's Gremory, son of Circe and Graphia, and Kunwu, the daughter of Yasaka. He had kidnapped them, knowing their parents would do everything possible to rescue them. To taunt them, he recorded a video. End of chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Just know that this Titan is truly diabolical. Chapter 21. In the previous chapter, Odin had a dream or vision where he saw Titan fulfilling his goal of annihilating the supernatural. After waking up, he warned the leaders, who were shocked and began to prepare. Meanwhile, Titan had kidnapped several children of various races, particularly Milika's and Kunwu. Now, what will happen? Will the factions be able to defeat Titan? Will Issei assist the factions? Why did Titan kidnap Milika's and Kunwu? Without further ado, the chapter begins. Narrator. 4 days had passed since the faction meeting following Odin's vision. They decided to send the DXD team along with Hyudouo and supported by Queen Tiamat and the Cadre Penemu. Shifting focus, we find ourselves in New York, where a certain brown-haired individual was preparing breakfast, as he had the day off. He planned to use the day to run some errands. After finishing breakfast, he left his apartment and headed to a park, observing children playing with their parents. A wave of sadness washed over him as he thought about how he could have been with his parents, but the memory of their tragic end surfaced. Flashback: death of Ben and May Parker. In the Parker household, things were in disarray. Issei was with the family that had adopted him, as Ben and May Parker were in their final moments of life. Brad Hyudou and Sarah Hyudou had gravely injured them using firearms. Issei, tears streaming down his face, reassured Ben, who was weak, that everything would be all right. He urged them to let him take them to the hospital. Ben, knowing his time was short, expressed his regret over the pain Issei had endured, feeling anger, sadness, and helplessness as they watched him suffer from rejection and bullying by both teachers and peers who treated him like a fool or a punching bag. Issei nodded in agreement, tears still falling. Ben advised Issei against seeking revenge, acknowledging his desire to make them pay but warning that it would only lead him down a dark path. He reminded Issei that with great power comes great responsibility. Issei promised he would remember those words. May, weakly calling for Issei, urged him to stay strong. Issei knelt beside her, crying as he reassured her that everything would be fine and that he would take her to the hospital. May, nearing the end, shared that he was the son they never had, and despite his biological family's rejection, Ben and May had welcomed him into their home, seeing him as a blessing. Issei felt as if stakes were piercing his heart as he listened to his parental figures give their last words. May requested to be placed next to Ben, and Issei carefully moved her to lie beside him, tears flowing from his eyes. He pleaded with them not to leave him, expressing his despair at the thought of being without them. They told him he was their greatest pride and urged him to help those in need. With their final words, Issei was left crying over their lifeless bodies, desperately calling out for them. After the flashback, Issei felt a deep sadness as he left the park to return to his apartment. Upon entering, he found the Slashdog group waiting for him: Lavinia, Tobio, Natsum, Suzu and Valerie. Tobio greeted him, and Issei responded in kind. They had come to see if he could help the factions. Issei acknowledged their desire to assist but firmly stated that he would not help those responsible for the pain they had caused. Lavinia reminded him that there were innocent lives at stake, and while she understood his anger, she insisted that they needed to act. Issei was resolute, recalling how he had been dismissed as useless by those he once sought to help. Valerie, sensing his lingering resentment, urged him to reconsider, noting that even heroes like Spiderman needed help sometimes. She handed him a magical paper to view the meeting, leaving Issei deep in thought as he settled onto his sofa and activated the paper. In the Demon Faction's meeting room, the leaders were serious as they watched a video from Titan. Their suspicions about children being kidnapped were confirmed, and they were particularly concerned about the disappearance of Milikas and Kunu. The video revealed Titan sitting on a throne, taunting the leaders and confirming their fears. He showed the captured children, including Milikas and Kunu, who were pleading for help, their cries echoing in the room. The sight of their children in danger brought tears to the eyes of Saoirse, Grafia, and Yasaka. Back with Issei, he was filled with shock and anger at the sight of innocent children being held captive. He recalled the attempts of Slashdog and Valerie to convince him to join their cause and realized that they truly needed his help. Rushing to his wardrobe, he searched for his Mark I suit but found it missing. Remembering that he had asked Lavinia for something to reinforce his suit, he felt frustrated but then recalled that he still had his original suit. He crouched down beside his bed to retrieve a box and opened it to find his suit. Meanwhile, the factions were comforting Saoirse, Grafia, and Yasaka, who were distraught over their children's peril. The members of the DXD group were equally desperate. Gabriel voiced a prayer for hope, asking for a sign from her father. Just then, a magical circle appeared near Saoirse, and a guard alerted him that something had entered the underworld. Saoirse activated the circle to see what had arrived. What they saw left them in shock. For a group of them, it was a surprise, but they smiled. Outside the castle, the demon girl pointed and exclaimed that everyone should look. They turned to see Spider-Man approaching the Gremory castle. The supernatural beings began to applaud as Spider-Man leaped onto a building, using a flag to gain momentum for his jump. The crowd cheered, calling out for the Spider-Man. He swung a web to a pole, spinning around to build speed before heading toward the castle. A guard, standing in a magic circle, informed Lucifer that there was an opportunity. Michael opened a nearby window, and they all witnessed Spider-Man land right in front of them. Spider-Man announced that he had come to help on Issei's behalf. This surprised the leaders, who nodded and began to devise a plan to confront the Titan and rescue the children. After some discussion, they agreed on their strategy. The DXD team, along with the Hyudouo faction, would face the Titan, while the Slashdog team, accompanied by Spider-Man, would go after the children. They prepared for battle, and Lavinia provided Spider-Man with his Mark I suit. Once ready, they gathered to hear the leader's instructions. However, Azazel made a comment that irritated Spider-Man. He questioned whether the suit would be useful, suggesting it was inadequate. Spider-Man retorted that at least he wasn't the one creating experiments aimed at destroying the supernatural, which silenced Azazel. Ajuka then cast a magic circle, transporting the DXD group along with the Slashdog team and Spider-Man. They were approached by Surzek, Graphia, and Yasaka, who requested that their children be brought back. They agreed and were transported to the Fallen Angels faction, where they found the area in ruins. Some were shocked to see the destruction, but they knew it was the work of the Titan. Suddenly, a voice echoed, taunting them, claiming that they were the ones who would face him and that he hoped for a good fight. The Titan awaited them amidst the rubble, with a purple cube nearby containing the children. The chapter concluded with a note of anticipation for the upcoming battle, acknowledging that the fight would take time to narrate and might not be epic, but the author would do their best. As the next chapter began, the narrator described the suspense in the air as they faced the Titan, who had already spotted them. They needed to stop him. The Titan mocked them, claiming they had good warriors but would have to defeat him to save the children. Spider-Man face-bombed at the foolishness of the situation. The Titan laughed, declaring that he would not surrender. As he prepared to launch a massive fireball, Spider-Man sensed danger and shouted for everyone to move. They obeyed, watching as the Titan's fireball struck a building. Spider-Man quickly devised a plan, instructing the DXD team and the Hyudouo faction to confront the Titan while he and the Slashdog team went after the children. They agreed and set off to execute their respective tasks. Meanwhile, Spider-Man and the Slashdog team approached the cube where the children were held, who were excited to see their rescuers. They placed devices to free the children while the Gremmery faction engaged the Titan. In the ensuing battle, the Titans skillfully dodged attacks from the Gremmery team, knowing they were outmatched due to their lack of training. The Hyudouo team put up a fight, but the Titan soon grew tired and began to retaliate. He launched Energy Ball at them, and while some managed to defend with magical shields, others like Gasper, Kiba, and Irina were unable to protect themselves and were hit. The Titan then unleashed a brutal assault on the Gremmery team, injuring Zenobia severely. Rosweiss and Penemu also suffered significant injuries from his powerful attacks. Ravel and Kaneko attempted to fight back but were met with dark magic swords. Rias, Aquino, Leifri, and Baiku Arthur tried to defend themselves, but the Titan struck them with an electric dragon attack, leaving them wounded. Only Valerie remained, using her balance breaker to fight back, but the Titan took advantage of the distraction and kicked her away. The Titan, with a sinister smile, remarked about the children being rescued, finding it amusing. Meanwhile, Spider-Man and his team were sending the children to safety through magic circles. Only Milikas and Kunu remained, and Spider-Man sensed the Titan approaching. He warned the group, and despite their protests, he insisted they needed to leave immediately for their safety. The children, determined to help, expressed their desire to stay, but Spider-Man reassured them that they would all return safely. With that promise, the children were transported away, leaving Spider-Man to join Lavinia and the Gremmery team in their fight against the Titan. The Slashdog team faced off against Titan, who was engaged in battle with them. They were struggling against his strength when he prepared to strike Tobio. Suddenly, Spider-Man intervened, delivering a kick to Titan's face that sent him crashing into a building. Tobio remarked that Spider-Man could have helped sooner, to which Spider-Man responded with a light-hearted apology, explaining he had been trying to convince the children to leave, but they didn't trust him. Their conversation was cut short as Titan approached, brushing off the dust from his clothes. He admitted that the blow had hurt a bit but declared he would take the fight seriously. This left Spider-Man and Tobio exchanging serious glances. In a flash, Titan lunged at Tobio with a punch, but Spider-Man intercepted the attack, blocking it with his arm. Tobio seized the opportunity to strike back at Titan, but Titan quickly recovered and prepared to attack again. Just then, Valerie appeared in her balance breaker, signaling that she was ready to assist. She stated they needed to buy time for the others, and Spider-Man noted he had left Lavinia to provide healing potions. Tobio suggested they create a strategy, proposing they distract Titan to allow the others to recover. However, Titan, noticing the trio, charged at them, igniting a fierce battle filled with punches and magical spells. In a moment of distraction, Tobio landed a hit on Titan's side, and Valerie followed up with a spell aimed at Titan's face. Spider-Man then launched webs and debris at Titan, leaving him visibly shaken but still standing, albeit with some injuries and torn clothing. Titan commented on their surprising strength and how they were putting up a fight. He then ominously declared he would reveal his true form. As he unleashed a powerful roar, his aura transformed into a dark red glow, overwhelming everyone around him, including the DXD team and Hakuryuku. The true form of Titan was revealed, a demon with black wings and parts engulfed in crimson flames. He addressed Spider-Man in a deep, menacing voice, questioning why he chose to help the others, suggesting they were the ones who made his life miserable. Spider-Man, serious, asked what Titan meant, while Titan pointed out that the others were unaware of Spider-Man's secret. With a dramatic revelation, Titan shouted Spider-Man's true identity, causing shock among those who didn't know. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the truth hung in the air. Rias, in tears, expressed disbelief, while the members of the Hakuryuku team reacted with surprise. Spider-Man remained serious, urging Rias to focus on the battle. Titan laughed, finding the situation amusing as he prepared to attack. In the chaos, Titan charged at the group, catching some off guard. Gasper, Zenobia, and Irina were struck, while Aquino retaliated with a sacred lightning strike. Rias attempted to unleash her destructive power, but Titan effortlessly deflected it, sending her crashing into a building. Rosweiss cast multiple spells, but Titan dodged them with ease. In a moment of vulnerability, Tobio and Spider-Man managed to land a few hits on Titan, but he quickly retaliated, grabbing Spider-Man by the neck and launching a dark energy blast at him, sending him crashing into another building. Titan began conjuring magical circles, unleashing a barrage of swords. The group tried to shield themselves with magic barriers, but some were still struck, including Rosweiss and Tobio. The Slash Dog team was sent flying by a powerful attack, leaving them immobilized. As Titan advanced at incredible speed, Tobio lamented their situation, while the others watched in shock, realizing their end was near. Just then, Spider-Man intervened, shouting for Titan to stay away from his friends. He struck Titan, causing him to become enraged and fight back aggressively. Spider-Man skillfully dodged Titan's attacks, but in a moment of carelessness, Titan landed a powerful hook to his face, sending him reeling. In response, Spider-Man created a dark clone to assist him, launching a fiery blast combined with electricity, while the clone used ice magic. Spider-Man braced himself, crossing his arms to block the attack, but his armor began to crack, filling him with anxiety about the consequences if it broke. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the battlefield. With a loud crash, the armor had shattered, unable to withstand the onslaught any longer. Spider-Man skillfully dodged the attacks at the last moment, returning with his team. They noticed he was only wearing his classic suit. Natsum looked at Issei and asked what had happened to the suit. Spider-Man explained that it had been destroyed by the Titan. Rias, curious, pressed for an explanation, asking how he had managed to keep his secret from them. "If you are my fiancée," said Spider-Man, teasingly calling her a spoiled girl. "First, I didn't want anyone to know my secret, and second, I'm not your fiancé. I don't see Brad here, so just be quiet already." "But Issei-san shouldn't talk to Riasbucho like that," said Asia. "Don't say anything, you useless nun," Spider-Man exclaimed, annoyed. "We have a big problem because of that old crow." "But Isanaya," Kuroka said, "we all make mistakes. Better not say anything, cat," Spider-Man replied angrily. You chose that dragon wannabe to have strong kittens. Your mindset is just like Zenovia's, wanting strong children. But Issei-sama, Leify said, it shouldn't be like this for us. Leify, enough, Valerie said angrily. This isn't the time to argue, we need to plan a strategy to defeat Titan. Finally, someone is thinking rationally in this situation, Spider-Man said, thanking Valerie. As they all nodded, they began to plan their next strategy. Alright, here's what we'll do, Spider-Man said seriously. The Gremory entourage, along with 2 members from the Hyudouo team, Kuroka and Biko, will face the clone while the rest of the Hyudouo team, Dog and I will handle the original. Everyone agreed and prepared until Titan and his clone appeared before them, where the clone faced the Gremory entourage along with the 2 Hyudouo members. In the battle of Group 1 against Titan's clone, the clone looked at the group seriously, knowing he could be strong, but if they landed 3 hits, he would be out. I'll just say this, the clone stated before the fight began. Does anyone want to back out? But the response was met with several attacks, which he dodged with ease, including the staff strikes. He then distanced himself to gather a massive amount of energy to launch at the group. They knew about this attack and managed to dodge it with some difficulty, but the clone took the opportunity to engage Biko, Kiba, Kaneko, Irina, and Zenovia, who were struggling to keep up with his speed. In a moment of carelessness, Titan sent them flying, and the Gremory entourage rushed to assist them, healing their wounds. However, they saw the clone create a bow and prepare to unleash a powerful attack. The Gremory entourage shielded themselves with magical barriers, leaving a cloud of dust where the clone struck Kiba, Zenovia, Irina, and Rosweiss. It was a grave mistake, as Gasper halted Titan with his sacred gear, allowing Aquino to unleash a powerful lightning strike and Kaneko to deliver a strong blow. Light spears from Penemu left the clone with several injuries, but knowing the clone was about to disappear, he made one last play. Steal! The clone shouted. The entire group felt their magic and strength being drawn toward the clone, who vanished, leaving behind fragments of darkness. In Group 2 against Titan, they were having a tough time with the original, who was putting up a fierce fight, launching several attacks. Some were dodged, but others landed, causing pain. Titan felt a headache as memories of his clone flooded back, recalling how it was defeated and how he had used the steal technique. He sensed the magic and strength transferring to him, and the group realized they were in serious trouble. Titan began to gather a massive amount of dark magic to unleash on the group. Valerie activated Albion's ability, Divide X40, but it didn't stop him. Spider-Man started shooting webs, trying to slow him down, but it was ineffective. They created a magical shield to at least hold it off, just as Group 1 arrived to help. Seeing the situation escalate, Spider-Man enveloped the group in a web dome, which shocked them, but it was too late as they heard an explosion. Boom. The entire team was injured from the blast, searching for Spider-Man, Issei, but they couldn't find any trace of him or his aura. Instead, they saw something that left them in shock and horror, a piece of his suit, a part of his mask. Titan looked on with a twisted smile, having defeated him. What a pity, Titan said. He's dead. Look at you all, you lost. You weren't strong enough to defeat me, and now I will kill you here. He conjured a lightning bolt to launch at them, but an arrow struck his chest, causing an explosion. Annoyed, he shouted, "Who did that?" Before he could react, he was hit by a shield and a blast of yellow and red energy. Titan turned to see who was attacking him, but he was struck by a missile, bullets, and metal feathers. The group was searching for the source of the attacks when they heard a voice. To your left, a mysterious voice said. They turned to see a breach opening, revealing a group they didn't expect. For the Dog team and Valerie, it was a surprise as the group that emerged was the one Issei had mentioned. They were the Avengers, consisting of Falcon, Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, Professor Hulk, War Machine, and Captain America. A bolt of lightning struck, and Thor landed to join them. How did you get here? Rosweiss asked curiously. It was with the help of the big red one who brought us, Thor replied, pointing to the group. Where is Spider-Man? He asked, which left the group in silence, tears beginning to form. They found this strange, but Lavinia revealed the mask, shocking everyone. Titan, seeing this, smirked. So you are the Avengers, Titan said. Oh, but look at what's left of him. It's a shame he didn't last long. I don't know why he protected them, it was a waste. He could have saved himself but chose to give his life. Pathetic. The group felt a surge of murderous intent, fury evident on their faces as they prepared to attack Titan. Meanwhile, in a building belonging to the fallen angels, a figure in a torn blue and red suit lay wounded. He was a teenager with brown hair, Issei Parker, who was gravely injured and bleeding. He couldn't move and let out a sigh, mentally cursing himself. Damn it, I can't move, Issei thought, frustrated. That attack left me in bad shape, I can't help them. Then you will give up, a mysterious voice said. Let me win. But what can I do if I can't move? Issei replied. Who are you? You know me well, Issei Parker, the voice said. I was with that stupid ex-brother of yours. Wait, is that you, Drake? Issei asked, surprised. How are you here if you should be extracted? It's true, but your brother was physically weak, and I managed to escape, Drake explained. But seriously, are you going to give up? Will you let me win? Issei felt a wave of frustration wash over him as he grappled with his own weaknesses. He acknowledged that he wasn't particularly strong, but Drake reminded him that even if he felt weak, he possessed something that many others lacked, the will to never give up. Drake had witnessed Issei's memories, the suffering he had endured, and the enemies he had faced. He noted that anyone else might have surrendered, but Issei, a mere human with the powers of a spider, had the courage to fight against a Titan. Drake expressed his respect for Issei, just as he respected Albion for how he had sealed the Trihexa. This revelation left Issei astonished. A celestial dragon respected him despite his humanity. Drake then asked if Issei Parker accepted the mantle of the Sekeryuitei and his power to defeat the Titan, or if he would abandon the promises he had made to his family and friends. Memories of his family and friends flooded back to him: Mary Jane, Harry, Tobio, Lavinia, Suzu, Natsum, Sikvera, Razor, the Avengers, and the promises he had made to Milikas and Kunu. With determination, Issei accepted Drake's offer, vowing not to let the Titan win. Drake congratulated Issei, informing him that he would be able to use the boosted gear, but it would require him to sacrifice a part of his body to endure more power. He would also gain access to the balance breaker for a limited time due to his condition. Issei resolved to sacrifice his right arm, ready to demonstrate their true strength. As Issei began to rise, the boosted gear manifested on his right arm, surrounded by a scarlet aura. A voice echoed, announcing the activation of Balance Breaker Overdrive. Meanwhile, the Avengers, the DXD team, and Slashdog were catching their breath, nursing their wounds. The Titan, equally battered, wore a twisted smile. Suddenly, they sensed an unfamiliar power and aura, followed by a shocking announcement: Boost X-20 Dragon Shot. A green energy ball struck the Titan, sending him crashing. A figure clad in red armor with green orbs and dragon wings appeared, declaring that the Titan would pay for what he had done to his friends. The group was taken aback, and upon sensing the aura, the DXD team and Slashdog gasped in unison, calling out for Issei. The tension between the two sides was palpable as they exchanged serious glances. In the aftermath, a heavy silence enveloped the scene. The person who had once been thought dead now stood before them, wearing the armor that had belonged to his ex-brother. The Titan, with a serious demeanor, acknowledged Spider-Man's survival, expressing disbelief that he was still alive. Spider-Man, ever resilient, replied that he was difficult to kill. The Titan found the situation intriguing and, in a flash of speed, charged at Spider-Man. However, Spider-Man, relying on his spider sense, crossed his arms defensively just as Thor unleashed a bolt of lightning that struck the Titan, sending him crashing into a tower. The group was astonished to see Spider-Man standing before them, apologizing for the scare he had given them. Captain America welcomed him back, and Spider-Man expressed his relief at seeing them again. They quickly shifted their focus to the Titan, and War Machine inquired about the plan. Spider-Man revealed a somewhat crazy strategy that involved everyone launching their best attacks while he would take on the Titan himself, promising to return. The group reluctantly accepted, taking their positions as Spider-Man prepared to confront the Titan. As the DXD team and their allies organized their attack, conversations arose about their spider hero and dragon hybrid. Rias expressed her disbelief that her pawn was the hero in question, leaving the Avengers surprised. Irina was grateful that her childhood friend hadn't turned to evil, while Zenobia remarked on his potential as a future father. Aquino commented on Issei's appearance, which sparked irritation in Suzaku, who confronted Aquino, warning her that her comments would not win Issei's favor. The tension escalated, but the others focused on their roles in the upcoming battle. Spider-Man approached the Titan, who was still recovering from the earlier attack. Landing in front of him, Spider-Man announced that he had kept the Titan waiting. The Titan, excited for the confrontation, unleashed his aura, and Spider-Man mirrored the action. They charged at each other, exchanging punches that were deftly dodged or blocked. Both combatants took to the air, their wings unfurling as they continued their fierce battle. The Titan managed to break through Issei's defenses, landing several blows that sent him crashing into a building. Seizing the opportunity, the Titan created rings to bind Spider-Man, who found himself trapped. The Titan began to unleash a barrage of strikes, but Spider-Man summoned his strength, cracking the bindings and surprising the Titan. With a fierce shout, he hurled debris at the Titan, turning the tide of the battle. They exchanged blows, each refusing to back down, until a powerful surge of energy resonated through Spider-Man, announcing Boost X10. Issei was struck by green and white lightning, sending him crashing into a building. Just before impact, a missile hit him squarely, propelling him away. However, a yellow and scarlet-red beam collided with him, causing him to crash to the ground. As he struggled to rise, he was met with a barrage of punches from Hulk, leaving him injured and spitting blood. Hulk then grabbed him and hurled him back toward Issei, who attempted to strike but Titan narrowly dodged. In retaliation, he tried to kick Issei, but Issei managed to evade and counter with a kick of his own. Drake's voice echoed in Issei's mind, informing him that he had only 7 seconds left in his balance breaker. Issei nodded, realizing it was time to finish the fight. Taking advantage of the fact that part of his left hand was exposed from the earlier clash, he launched several webs at Titan, striking him. Issei then positioned himself behind Titan, grabbing his hands and restraining him. Captain America saw this and signaled for everyone to prepare their strongest attacks. Titan struggled to break free, but Spider-Man held him in place. Valerie activated the Juggernaut Drive, and everyone unleashed their most powerful attacks, combining their efforts. Titan and Spider-Man watched as the attack approached, and Titan desperately tried to escape but found it impossible. Titan expressed his disbelief, claiming the attack would kill them both. Spider-Man, with a teasing smile reminiscent of Dante, taunted him about his fear of death. This angered Titan, who continued to struggle against his restraints. As the attack drew near, Spider-Man kicked Titan, releasing him toward the incoming blast. A massive explosion erupted, shaking the area and creating a powerful wind. They waited for the dust to settle, and as the wind died down, they saw the source of the explosion. A silhouette emerged from the smoke, and as they approached, they were met with a terrifying sight. Titan staggered out, transforming back from his demonic form to human, bearing wounds and burns. Penemu quickly placed a seal on him to prevent the use of magic. The others searched for Spider-Man, who was nowhere to be seen until they spotted a familiar figure. He stood before them, his suit torn, much of his mask missing, revealing his face, with blood smeared across his body. He walked toward them, albeit limping, and managed a smile. He acknowledged that he had fulfilled his promise, stating he needed medical attention before collapsing. Hulk caught him just in time, while Rossweiss conjured a magic circle to transport them to the leaders. In the Demon Faction's meeting room, everyone was anxious about Titan's defeat. The children who had been kidnapped were reunited with their families, including Milika's and Kunu. Suddenly, they noticed a magic circle and recognized the group from DXD alongside Hakuryuku and Slashdog, but there was another group they did not recognize. They saw Titan bound by magical chains and Spider-Man injured on the shoulder of the Emerald Giant. Serge noticed his sister trembling with tears. He asked Rias why she was crying. She replied, tears streaming down her face, that Spider-Man was Issei, her Issei. This revelation stunned the leaders, particularly 4 individuals who overheard, including a blonde, a purple-haired girl, and a black-haired girl. The purple-haired girl expressed disbelief, while the black-haired girl echoed her sentiment. Latia, with a serious expression, explained that she had told Issei not to reveal his secret, but now the situation had become complicated. Sikavera reassured them that Issei would handle it and that they would support him. Latia agreed, urging everyone not to worry, assuring Injilv and Nyx that they would see Issei recover. The chapter concluded, leaving readers eager for what would happen next. A month had passed since the battle against the Titan, and all the supernatural beings praised the group from DxD, along with the Hakuryuku and Slashdog teams. However, no one acknowledged Spider-Man or the Avengers, as the leaders had lied and left to attend to their own matters, leading most to ignore them. Speaking of spiders, our hero was in the hospital, where a group was waiting for him in his room. As Issei began to wake up, he felt disoriented and wondered where he was. Drake informed him that he was in the Citri hospital and asked what had happened while he was unconscious. Drake explained that the Slashdog group had been visiting, but the factions were aware of his secret. Issei felt frustrated, realizing he would now be constantly bothered. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the Avengers and Slashdog entered, greeting the brown-haired hero with hugs. They informed him of what had transpired, confirming Drake's words and revealing that 2 people were already aware of his secret. At that moment, a guard entered, addressing Issei and informing him that the leaders wanted to see him. Resigned, Issei agreed to go, and Captain America offered to accompany him. The guard formed a circle for everyone to enter and head to the leaders to clarify that Issei would not return with them. In the Gremory Castle meeting room, the leaders were discussing the brown-haired boy with spider powers. Some of the female leaders were reading newspapers and watching videos about Spider-Man, with headlines like Spider-Man, Hero or Threat, and Rhino and Spider-Man, Chaos in New York. Rias expressed disbelief that Issei would take such risks, while Irina insisted he needed to stop being a hero to avoid danger. Azazel, intrigued, mentioned he would like to see Issei's abilities for study. Only 4 people knew that Issei would not return, but they supported him nonetheless, hoping to help him correct his mistakes. Someone knocked on the door, and Surzek allowed Issei, along with the Avengers and Slashdog, to enter. Mal Lucifer greeted Issei warmly, but Issei responded coldly, pointing out the hypocrisy. Odin attempted to lighten the mood, but Issei shot back, leaving Odin speechless. Rias, angry, told Issei to respect her brother and apologize to the leaders. However, Issei silenced her with a web, insisting that adults should speak. Issei, serious, demanded to know what they wanted. Michael explained they wanted to discuss his identity as Spider-Man and his role as the new Sekeryuitei. To save time, Issei decided to show them, calling on Drake to materialize the boosted gear. The factions were surprised as a laser beam projected Issei's memories, showing his journey from Kuo to New York, his new life, and the few friends he had made, like Harry and Mary Jane. They also saw the news of his late teacher, his leap of faith, and his adventures, including saving Chisato. As the leaders watched, they grew concerned about who would save Chisato from danger. They hoped Brad would come up with a strategy, but he remained silent. Issei thought about how Brad would struggle without his ideas, torn between saving Chisato and the consequences of his actions. He left the room, unaware that he was being followed. Everyone was impressed by Issei's story, and Chisato felt grateful and remorseful, determined to earn his friendship. Surzek then addressed Mal Lucifer, stating that he would be engaged to his sister and that as the new Sekeryuitei, Issei would need to be a pillar for the factions. Azazel added that Issei should stop being Spider-Man, wanting to understand his abilities and potential. Issei firmly refused to be engaged, telling Azazel he had not learned from his mistakes. The Avengers defended Issei, but Michael questioned their presence. Hawkeye introduced themselves as Issei's allies. Scarlet Witch argued against the leaders wanting Issei to stop being a hero. Aquino insisted they had no say in the matter, while Suzuka chastised Aquino for her behavior. Baraquiel defended Aquino, but Suzaku insisted that she must face the consequences of her actions. Tensions rose, and as Baraquil attempted to slap Suzu, Issei intervened, twisting Baraquil's hand and pushing him against the wall. Azazel tried to reason with Issei, but he was met with anger. Issei reminded Azazel of the innocent lives lost due to his actions, vowing that he would not hesitate to take action if provoked again. He warned the factions that if they made another mistake, they would face severe consequences. Issei unleashed his destructive aura, joined by Michael, Yasaka, and Elmenhild. Those who supported Issei released their instincts, and surprisingly, Zeus and Shiva joined in, sensing the tension. Issei's silhouette took on the form of a dragon and a spider, watching the leaders as prey. Just then, a powerful presence entered the room, and a red-haired figure emerged from a dimensional rift, causing everyone to recognize him as Great Red. They knew. The Great Red Dragon spoke seriously, insisting that the larvae leave Issei alone. Circe tried to interject but was silenced. The dragon continued, explaining that they only wanted Issei for his powers, the spider and the dragon, and warned them to leave him in peace or he would take matters into his own hands. Issei expressed his gratitude to the Great Red Dragon, who then encouraged him to go speak with his friends while he dealt with the factions. As Issei prepared to leave, the door swung open abruptly, revealing two familiar brown-haired figures. Issei recognized them and quickly sidestepped. He addressed them coldly, asking what Goro and Issei Hyuodou needed. Both parents pleaded for forgiveness, but Issei feigned ignorance, claiming that Brad was not there. Issei acknowledged their past mistakes and expressed a desire to make amends, but Issei firmly stated that there was nothing to fix. Goro insisted they deserved another chance, just as they had given to others. Issei's anger flared as he warned Goro not to speak of them, grabbing his ex-father by the shirt and threatening to break the window. Goro, filled with fear, urged Issei not to act. Issei responded with a serious tone, threatening to take away what Goro had taken from Ben Parker. Goro released his grip, letting Issei drop him, and the onlookers gasped in horror, though some remained unfazed. Issei then shot a web, ensnaring Goro, who looked on in fear. Issei reflected on the weight of his actions, recalling the saying that, with great power comes great responsibility. Issei, in disbelief, questioned how he could do such a thing. With tears in his eyes, Issei reflected on his family, Ben and May Parker. He understood that they would never be his family again, leaving his mother and father heartbroken as he departed with the Avengers and the Slash Dog team, along with Hakuryuku. Issei approached Captain America and reminded him of his earlier proposal to join the team. Captain America asked why he wanted to join, and Issei expressed his eagerness to be part of the group. They shook hands, solidifying the agreement just as Sikavera and two familiar faces, Injilv and Nyx, arrived. They embraced Issei, who was surprised but returned the gesture. They chatted until two patriarchs and a pink-haired girl arrived. Issei recognized one of the patriarchs, Belphegor, and was taken aback by their presence. Belphegor greeted Issei warmly, expressing gratitude for saving their daughter during her time in the human world. Issei humbly dismissed their thanks, but the matriarch offered a reward, asking if he wanted money, fame, or the hand of their daughter. Issei, feeling a bit nervous, declined, suggesting they could be friends if she was interested. The patriarch agreed, and they took their leave. Meanwhile, Roygun spoke with Issei, while Kunu and Milikas approached him nervously. Issei noticed their hesitation and asked if they needed anything. The children asked him a few questions, which he answered, leaving them with an encouraging phrase before they departed. Soon after, Sikavera presented Issei with his new suit, enhancing its durability. As the Avengers left with Lavinia, Issei prepared to return to New York. He thanked them for their help and requested Gran Rojo to open a portal. Gran Rojo obliged, creating a rift through which Issei donned his mask, assuring them that if they needed him, they knew where to find him. As Spider-Man leaped through the portal, he felt the rush of air and called out to New York, declaring his return as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Some leaders watching the portal felt sadness at his departure, wishing he could stay, but he had made it clear he would not return. Milikas and Kunu remembered his words about hope, understanding that even in darkness, there is light to be found. In the apartment of Issei, he was preparing for university after a month-long break. He had been studying for exams and training with Gran Rojo to master the boosted gear. He had achieved a complete balance breaker, but it only lasted for an hour and 20 minutes, as he was still not a full dragon, possessing only 10 to 20% of that power. As he walked, he conversed with Drake in his thoughts about his plans for the day, which included patrolling or assisting the Avengers if they needed him. Drake inquired when he would be released from the boosted gear, and Issei explained he needed to make some adjustments with Gran Rojo's help. While deep in thought, Issei accidentally bumped into a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. He apologized, and she assured him it was also her fault for being distracted. They introduced themselves, with Issei revealing his name and the girl identifying herself as Gwen Stacy. They parted ways, unaware they were heading to the same classroom. Upon arriving, Issei noticed some new faces but recognized a familiar redhead. He greeted Mary Jane, who asked about Harry. Issei informed her that Harry had gone on a trip for some personal matters, though he suspected Harry was hiding something. Mary Jane expressed disappointment at his absence. As they conversed, a blonde and a pink-haired girl entered the room, one of whom sensed Drake's essence and recognized the dragon's presence. Just then, the teacher entered, prompting everyone to introduce themselves. Issei began with his name, followed by Mary Jane, who introduced herself as Mary Jane Watson. Gwen Stacy then introduced herself, causing surprise among the classmates, especially when Issei noticed Mary Jane's sharp gaze, which made him nervous. As introductions continued, a brown-haired boy named Kazuma Yamato and a black-haired boy named Isaac Hida introduced themselves. A red-haired girl named Mio Naruse also introduced herself, leaving everyone astonished again. Mary Jane and Gwen exchanged curious looks, wondering about Mio's familiarity with Issei, who felt a mix of nervousness and confusion. Suddenly, a pink-haired girl named Stella Vermilion introduced herself, casting a knowing glance at Issei. Drake informed Issei that Stella was his sister, adding to Issei's growing anxiety about the situation. Meanwhile, in a distant building, two individuals were making a deal to conquer New York, setting the stage for future challenges. In a dimly lit room, two men discussed their plans for illegal dealings. One, a bald man in a suit, expressed his satisfaction with the arrangement, while a gray-haired man in a black suit confidently declared that soon they would have New York under their control. The bald man laughed, proclaiming that no one would stop them, they would be the new kings. The gray-haired man, with a serious demeanor, pointed out that they needed to eliminate a certain hero who posed a threat. The bald man assured him that he had someone in mind who could take care of it. When asked for his name, he introduced himself as Tubston. The other man, known as Wilson Fisk but preferring to be called King Pink, nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, in Africa, a figure was seen aiming a sniper rifle at an elephant. Just as he prepared to shoot, a woman in a truck approached him, delivering a message from King Pink. The unknown man inquired about the request, and the woman revealed that there was a bounty on a certain individual. As she showed him an image of a spider-themed hero, a smile crept across his face. He accepted the deal, changing his attire with determination. The woman warned him that capturing this hero would be difficult, but he confidently replied that no one could escape him. He was Kraven the Hunter. In a different location, a dark-haired woman emerged from a building, dressed in a peculiar outfit that revealed parts of her figure while sporting black wings. She wore a look of anger and sadness directed at two individuals. She reflected on a deceitful man named Brad, expressing satisfaction that he had received his punishment. However, she was intrigued by the fact that his ex-brother had become a hero. With a sinister smile, she vowed to make him suffer, starting with his friends. She introduced herself as Ryanair, declaring that she would be the one to bring about his downfall. At Oscorp, Norman Osborn descended into his facility, arriving at a capsule where his son, Harry Osborn, lay. Harry was kept alive by a green liquid due to a disease that had claimed his mother. Norman was determined to find a cure for his son, vowing to do everything in his power to ensure Harry's survival. He knew that Issei Parker's life would change drastically after being bitten by a spider, as he now faced new enemies, including an old foe who sought his life. Meanwhile, Norman was preoccupied with his son's peril and the urgent need for a cure. However, Issei would not be alone in this fight. He would have the support of several allies as these events unfolded in the next season of Issei Spider-Man. As the first season came to a close, the audience was left with questions about two characters, Kazuma Yamato and Isaac Hida, and their connection to Issei. It was hinted that Kazuma would become the next Scarlet Spider, while Isaac would take on the role of the lethal protector, Venom. The author hoped the audience would enjoy these new characters, noting changes in Issei's harem. In a tower, four serious individuals gathered. A blonde woman asked Richard how much time they had before an impending threat arrived. Richard analyzed the situation, confirming they still had time but needed to prepare. A man made of stone agreed, emphasizing the importance of alerting others. Richard instructed Johnny to inform everyone of the great danger approaching. As Johnny left, leaving a trail of fire, Susan reassured Richard that they could save the Earth. Richard acknowledged her support, knowing they had to get ready for the arrival of Galactus. The chapter concluded, leaving the audience eager for what was to come next. A green beam shot from Brad's arm, revealing memories that painted him as the worst kind of person. It was clear he had always harbored resentment towards his brother. He spread rumors that Issei was a pervert who took advantage of women, stealing credit from his brother during the raiding game against Razor, the battle against Cadre Kokobile, Loki, and the Seal of Trihexa. He even sold information to the Cows Brigade for money, recognition, and women. One particular memory that angered Issei was when Brad suggested killing Ben Parker, with May Parker also involved. He had made a deal with Vulture, providing stolen technology from Azazel, but had double-crossed him. As Brad's former admirers were left in shock, tears streamed down their faces. The man they thought was their fiancé turned out to be a fraud. The Archangel Gabriel, using her ability to read hearts, could only see the lustful thoughts Brad harbored. The leaders were at a loss. Their supposed hero was nothing but a charlatan. They could only curse themselves for believing in him. The room fell silent until someone launched an attack at Brad. "Scoundrel!" A familiar voice shouted. "Ah, damn it!" Brad screamed. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "Because of you, we underestimated Issei," Mayo shouted. Angrily, Brad attempted to use his armor but found he couldn't. Drake spoke up, "You won't be able to use my power, you are the worst Sekeryu. None of the other hosts consider you worthy. Demed traitor." Brad shouted in anger. "Shut up, the traitor is you," Drake replied. "Brad Hyudou, for this act of betrayal, you will be punished," Cersei declared. "You can't do this to me," Brad protested. "Be quiet, Brat," Odin said. "You have no right to speak." "Guards, take this scum to prison," Cersei ordered. The music came to an end. Meanwhile, Issei was feeling a mix of happiness and anger as the truth had been revealed, though he was still upset with his former family. He was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Hello, Issei," the voice said. "Hi, Razor. How are you?" Issei replied. "I'm good. How does it feel to have the truth come out?" Razor asked. "I feel good and grateful for Drake, Albion, and Valerie," Issei responded. "I'm glad." "Here," Razor said, handing him a piece of paper. "And what's this for?" Issei inquired. "That paper has the address where we buried them," Razor explained. "Thank you, Razor. I don't know how to repay you," Issei said. "Don't worry, you helped me too." "See you around," Razor replied. After their conversation, Issei headed to the address where he had buried those who had helped him. It took him 40 minutes to arrive at the graves of Ben Parker and May Parker. "Hello," Issei said. "I'm sorry I couldn't visit sooner. I moved from Kuo to New York and started a new life." "I'm sorry I couldn't help you," Issei continued. "But now everyone knows the truth. I hope you're happy wherever you are. Goodbye." As Issei left the cemetery, he reflected on his thoughts. "I don't know what life is. I prepared, but I won't forget these words. With great power comes great responsibility. This is my gift, my curse," Issei thought. "Do you want to know who I am? I am Spider-Man.